the public hearing of the Committee of the Whole regarding bills number 170195, 170196, 170197, and resolution number 170213, bill number 170198, bill number 170199, and 170200. Mr. Stitt, please read the titles of the resolution and bill.
Bill number 170195, an ordinance to adopt a capital program for the 6 fiscal years 2018 through 2023 inclusive. Bill number 170196, an ordinance to adopt a fiscal 2018 capital budget. Bill number 170197, an ordinance adopting the operating budget for fiscal year 2018. Bill number 170198, an ordinance amending Chapter 19-1500 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Wage and Net Profits Tax by revising certain tax rates under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 170199, an ordinance amending Section 19-1801 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Authorization of Tax to further authorize the Board of Education of the School District of Philadelphia to impose a tax on real estate within the City of Philadelphia, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 170200, an ordinance amending Section 19-1806 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Authorization of Realty Use and Occupancy Tax to further authorize the Board of Education of the School District of Philadelphia to impose a tax on the use or occupancy of real estate within the School District of Philadelphia under certain terms and conditions. Resolution number 170213, resolution providing for the approval by the Council of the City of Philadelphia of a revised 5-year financial plan for the City of Philadelphia covering fiscal years 2018 through 2022 and incorporating proposed changes with respect to fiscal year 2017, which is to be submitted by the Mayor to the Pennsylvania Intergovernmental Cooperation Authority, the authority pursuant to the Intergovernmental Cooperation Agreement, authorized by an ordinance of this Council, approved by the Mayor on January 3, 1992, Bill number 1563-A, by and between the City and the authority.
Thank you. Today we continue the public hearing of the Committee of the Whole to consider the bills read by the clerk that constitute proposed operating and capital spending measures for fiscal 2018, a capital program, and a forward-looking capital plan for fiscal 2018 through fiscal 2023. Mr. Stitt, today we will hear testimony from the following city departments: Revenue Department, Board of Revision of Taxes, Revenue Tax Bills, and public testimony later on today. Mr. Stitt, the first person to testify is
Commissioner Breslin.
Good morning. Please proceed.
Frank Breslin, Revenue Commissioner. Good morning, Council President Clark and members of City Council. I am Frank Breslin, Revenue Commissioner and Chief Collections Officer. Thank you for the opportunity to offer brief remarks. With our diverse and dedicated workforce, the Department of Revenue will collect more funds in fiscal year 2018 and have more people in our assistance programs than any year before, with virtually no change in general fund operating budget. We're able to do this with ongoing improvements in our policies and procedures and investments in technology that allow us to work more quickly, accurately, and strategically. The easiest way to collect is for a taxpayer or water customer to simply pay on time, which more than 9 out of 10 Philadelphians do. And we owe it to these hardworking individuals, families, and businesses to provide them with great customer service when they have a question or want to make a payment. In fiscal year 2017, we made things easier by offering free e-check, the fastest, easiest way to pay, implementing a new kiosk system in the MSB concourse to make visiting us in person easier, launching a new website in partnership with the Office of Data and Digital Transformation that is easier to understand and navigate and is available in dozens of languages, starting the procurement process for e-billing, participating in more than 75 community outreach events this past tax season, with more coming throughout the year, moving towards providing receipts with more information about how payments are applied. Although we have faced technical challenges deploying these new receipts, Councilman Jones's support and encouragement helps focus our resources on this effort. Implementing the beverage tax with comprehensive outreach and electronic filing and payment, initial collections are strong and we are on track to meet revenue estimates. To help those entitled to relief or who need some accommodation to meet their obligation, we've taken a number of steps, including creating 2 new positions to lead our efforts to enroll all eligible individuals in tax and water assistance programs. And we are ready to launch TAP this summer. TAP is the new affordable rates program for low-income water customers championed by Councilwoman Sanchez. We're piloting a new payment plan at the suggestion of Councilwoman Bass for businesses with terms selected by the taxpayer to make it easier for businesses to get back on track. We're streamlining application processes and tax credit requests for programs like the CDC, which Councilman Green had advocated for improving the ease of access for CDCs and business partners. And we're managing a successful outreach campaign for the Earned Income Tax Credit and supporting free tax preparation for more than 20,000 Philadelphians. We appreciate all members' support in this effort, and particularly the advocacy of Councilman Dom. And while we are making things easier for those that are doing the right thing or need assistance, we are simultaneously getting smarter and tougher when it comes to identifying and collecting delinquent debts. We have launched a data warehouse that puts information from revenue, other city agencies, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and the IRS into one place. So far, we have generated $19.8 million on collections and new initiatives, like using federal tax returns to identify Philadelphia residents not registered for the school income tax. This effort has brought in $4 million for the school district. We're closing loopholes and tightening the rules to ensure that everyone pays their fair share. For example, legislation sponsored by Council President Clark and members Taubenberger, Squilla, Gim, Blackwell, O'Neill, Parker, Heenan, and Reynolds-Brown ensured that everyone, from the first-time homebuyer to the corporate real estate conglomerates, need to pay their fair share of realty transfer tax, closing the loophole for creative approaches in large, complex transactions to avoid the tax. We've reduced the number of delinquent real estate accounts and the amount due to the lowest point in years, using an array of tactics including sequestration, behavioral economics, increasing the frequency of our billing, and increasing the use of collection agencies to ensure all accounts are acted upon quickly. The Philadelphia beverage tax was not the only new initiative for the department this year. We are proud of our progress, but new programs are never without growing pains. We have partnered with the Land Bank to support their acquisition of delinquent land. Unfortunately, there were instances where parcels were accidentally not caught in time to prevent being sold at sheriff's sale. Our agencies have developed new business processes and timeliness for submissions to prevent this in the future. Our new cashiering system, while functioning well today, had technical issues that led to delays in payment processing. We apologize for the problems that this caused water customers and taxpayers. In each of these cases, we have learned and have adjusted our business processes to prevent them from happening again. While challenges remain, the Department of Revenue has made progress in fiscal year 2017 by nearly every measure. More dollars collected on time, more people enrolled in assistance programs and payment agreements, and fewer delinquent accounts. With your support of our budget request, we are on track to continue these trends in fiscal year 2018. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much for your testimony, and good morning again.
Morning.
So, I'm sure you've heard that I've been somewhat critical of the Revenue Department. If you haven't, you must have had your head in the ground, because I've been banging you guys quite regularly.
I've heard.
And as a result of some of the decisions made in your department, it caused us to call for a hearing that subsequently got postponed because I think I had to go to Harrisburg or something. And in looking into your department, and it expanded to OPA and law, we actually have a book about this big, and I don't think it would be appropriate for me to get into all of that today, particularly given the fact that my colleagues would pretty much run me from this table because I'd be taking up all of the time. So we had, in the process of scheduling a separate hearing to deal with the many, many, many problems that we had both with revenue, with OPA, and with law, and some of the things that we found in this very, very exhaustive analysis of the way you're operating. So I say all that to say that I'm actually not going to ask you any questions today. I'm going to save all of our questions for a time and when we can focus solely on the information that we put together in this very big book. And I think the book is coming down so I can show you so you can be prepared. And something I don't like doing, but it's just that it got to a level where the lack of responsiveness, the lack of understanding as it relates to our ability to interact with your department is like stunning. But again, I'm not going to get into it today. So with that, I'm going to call on Councilman Greenlee for the first round of questions.
Thank you, Mr. President. Commissioner, you mentioned in your remarks about the problem with cashiering the water bills and that people were getting delinquent notices even though they were paying.
Yes,
You said you think that's been worked out, or?
it has been worked out.
Okay. Yeah, my office hasn't gotten calls about that recently, but what they are getting calls about are people who paid to get that 1% discount on their real estate taxes. And this is a number of people, this isn't just one or two, that are saying that they're getting delinquent bills for that 1%, even though they paid before, whatever it was, February 28th or whatever it was.
Right.
So are you having problems with that too? Is that seem to be an issue? And by the way, some of these people paid at the, that you put it in like that mailbox looking thing?
Oh, yeah, in the Dropbox.
Yeah, Dropbox.
Yeah, I use that myself, so
Okay.
sometimes.
So has there been problems there, or?
It could be that during the times where we were experiencing the problems with the cashiering system, that those delays could have caused a taxpayer's payment to get processed after the due date for the discount. Now, we were proactively trying to catch those and avoid that, and I think for the most part, that happened, but I think some probably did get through, and all they need to do is contact the department, and we can reverse that so that they get the credit,
Okay.
the discount.
Again, not to pick, I know the council president started with some of the concerns. A lot of those people called us because they couldn't get through to revenue, just to let you know, okay? They couldn't get any answers, so they called us, so. But you think that's being worked, I mean,
Yeah,
like
what
if somebody paid ahead of February 28th, do you think by now, even if they got that delinquency notice before, it might be on record, or?
Yes, the payments should all be on record.
And on time, so that
And on time.
delinquency will be taken off?
Yes, yes. What we had
Okay.
was, to explain the problem, we had a upgrade in the software system. There was perceived to be a low-risk upgrade, that when we did the upgrade, it actually brought the system down. And that was right at our peak time. We proactively worked to get the system back up as quickly as possible, but during that brief period, and it was a few weeks, we were slow in processing payments, and that has been resolved. The software is up, the cashiering system's up and running, and the good news is with the new cashiering system, there's a lot of advances in technology, and it'll actually help us speed processing up in the future.
Okay. All right, and real quick, you talk about in the written, and I think you mentioned it too, improve awareness for all assistance programs. For people who are getting any kind of shut-off notice or any delinquency notice, there's information included in there how they can get help for
Yes.
water, taxes,
There
whatever?
is.
It's
There's
included
information
in the
there. There's
notice.
information on our web page. We brought in.
I'm talking about the bill, when you get a bill.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. It is? Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. Commissioner and staff, thank you for coming today and offering your testimony. A couple of quick questions. Over the past 3 years, are revenue collections up or down or neutral?
Revenue collections are up.
Say that again.
Revenue collections are up.
Do you know the percentage by which we are collecting revenue? Are those increases?
Yeah, I don't have numbers to spout you.
Okay. What do you attribute some of that increased collection to?
I think it's an array of things. One is we've been working strongly to increase voluntary compliance. So we're making it easier to pay. We're doing a lot of outreach. We're also making it easier for those who need assistance to get into assistance plans and to come in and get into payment arrangements. So that brings people into compliance, keeps them paying. And then for those that we can't nudge into voluntary compliance, we're getting tougher with our collection tactics. So, and when I say tougher, it's just more predictable. People know that things are going to happen and basically what is going to happen.
In the dungeon known to many as MSB Basement Concourse, has the waiting time for payments gone down, or how's that been working?
Waiting times have improved greatly in the concourse, mainly due to a new kiosk system that we brought in last year. So now what taxpayers can do when they come into the concourse, they log into a kiosk, put in their demographic information, name, account number, information. They actually can enter a phone number, their cell phone number. So what ends up happening is the system sends them a text message when it's their time to be seen. So now they can take care of other business while they're down there and not have to fear missing their turn. And also, the system constantly updates in how long the wait time will be. So before you came in and you kind of logged in and you didn't know, you signed in at a desk and you didn't know how long your wait time would be. But now you're told, and it's constantly up on a screen, so your number comes up, you see how long your wait time is, you kind of see where you're at in the queue. As I said, you can leave, and so it's improved wait times, but it's also improved the customer experience, because when they're there, they know what's going on, they know when they'll be seen.
So I'm glad to hear that. Short of going to the dentist or the DMV, I think that was the worst punishment I ever had back in the day. So I'm glad the customer experience is improving. Can you provide those wait time shrinkages and also increases in revenue collection to the president, and he can share that with us?
We can.
At your next anticipated hearing. A couple of years ago, we put in a resolution, several. One dealt with direct deposits and the stories about paper checks not being deposited. Do you, particularly for our receivables and reimbursements from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, has that been improved?
Yes. Our new cashiering system, one of the great benefits of it now is that we can get checks into the bank quicker. There's something called Check 21 where we don't have to actually send paper checks to a clearinghouse to be processed. We can send digital images of the checks, and we retain the checks, and ultimately they get destroyed. That gets checks in the bank quicker.
And so that time, do we receive interest payments, increased float, or what do you call it? Sweeps?
Yeah, so it would get money into the bank quicker, which gets it into our account and gets it earning faster.
Can you give that information pre and post, what the difference has meant to revenues to the city? The answer is yes.
Yes.
There you go.
The time, yes, we'll get that to you.
All right.
Absolutely.
So my itemized payment for seniors, to know the difference when they pay $1, how much is going to the actual bill, penalties, or interest. And I know you had some software, hardware. When can we anticipate its debut?
Very shortly, as a matter of fact.
Soon and very soon? Or,
Well, we just had and send one, if you haven't received it yet, I'll make sure that you get it. We just got our first draft of the receipt and what it looks like, and we want to get it to your office so we can get your input to make sure that what we have right now is what you perceive when you
I'm sending it right to my seniors who complain and let them give you the input, because one of the questions becomes is, people in general and seniors in particular don't always understand, well, I gave you $100,
right,
and you telling me I still owe $100. And sometimes that calculation of interest, penalties, and past due is not clearly understood. And if you highlight that, it gives them a better opportunity. So I'm going to send it to them to get feedback.
And that's what the new receipt will do. The new receipt will show the total amount paid and then break it down between tax, interest, and penalty. and do that for every year. If it's a delinquent payment for multiple years, it'll break it down by year. If it's just for a current year, it'll show the current year. So it's detailed.
My final question is on the sugary drinks tax, which I understand we're going to get some visitors testifying on that tonight, I was told. But tell me how you are fairly and precisely calculating what those revenues, when you go out or have people come in for audits, how are you addressing, because there's stories of bootleggers coming across the bridge with sodas from Jersey, and well, how are we dealing with that?
So the enforcement side of this, it's a little early for full-blown tax audits because we only have a few months of filings in, 3 months of filings. But what we do is we have investigators on the street. Investigators up front, they did a lot of outreach. They went into stores. They made sure that store owners knew what was expected of them, to buy from a registered distributor, or that they would be responsible for the tax and what records would be required. Now we've kind of shifted from that outreach mode into the enforcement mode. So now when the investigators go out, they're actually looking at invoices. So they want to see the invoices. They want to see if the beverages have been purchased from a registered distributor, in which case the retailer is fine and we'll check to make sure that the registered distributor is paying. On the other hand, if the retailer is not buying from a registered distributor, then they're responsible for the tax. We're checking to see that they are actually registered and that they're paying. If not, they'll be assessed the tax and they'll be responsible for that plus interest and penalty.
So I'm going to pass the mic. One of the complaints I've gotten from the public is that small stores, some of them unregulated, are charging for items that should not be charged under. So 100% juices are getting the sugar added tax. So equally as readily as we want to get our money in the door, we don't want to penalize people in the community to be unfairly taxed for things that they shouldn't. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Parker.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning to each of you. Let me start with noting that over the past 2 months, we've been having some budget briefings and town hall meetings in the 9th Councilmatic District. And when we go through the $4.3 billion spend, and we talk about the revenue being generated, we notice that 18.5% of it is from residential real estate taxes. With that being said, tell me the total amount of delinquent residential taxes that are owed to the city of Philadelphia. Do we know the total amount of residential delinquent taxes?
We do.
Yeah. So what we'd like to hand out is actually some information pieces. And I'm Marissa Waxman, First Deputy Revenue Commissioner. And what you'll see on here is information about the amount of still delinquent real estate tax revenue, and we break it down a couple different ways. So on here, you'll see sort of what status it's in terms of whether it's in a payment agreement or not. And then at the bottom right on the front page, you'll see the types of properties that owe. And so 22% of the properties that owe are owner-occupied residential, but 70% are other types of residential that are non-owner occupied, and we can update you with the dollar figures that are attached to those, because you're right, the number of properties is almost inverse to the dollar value that they owe.
This is extremely important, and it goes back to some research that we looked at that came from Council President Clark's office. His tech staff, you'll remember, worked on data demonstrating that much of the delinquent real estate taxes in the city of Philadelphia it was actually owed by folks who own property in the city, but their primary residence was outside of the city of Philadelphia. And with that being said, I appreciated it being mentioned in the 5-year plan on page 271. It references some legislation that we were able to champion during my tenure in Harrisburg that gave the city of Philadelphia the tools it needed to place liens on the properties of people whose primary residence was outside of the city. But we were challenged in court, and last year it was still too new to sort of quantify its viability or value. Can you give us an update on how we've been using that tool?
Yes, we've been using that tool. As you stated, last year we were just really at the onset of transferring judgments outside of Philadelphia to Pennsylvania properties for those owners. To date, we have over 1,000 real estate tax liens in place for over $1 million. And one of the, I think, perfect examples is we have a property, one particular situation where an owner has multiple properties in Philadelphia, owes well over $100,000 in delinquent taxes, and we've transferred the liens to that owner's residence outside of Philadelphia in Pennsylvania, where the property is valued well over $1 million. So we've got that transferred to their home, and we've done that now on, as I said, over 1,000 properties, and we think we're going to really start seeing those pay off. The money is just starting to come in, so we haven't seen huge results in terms of collections, but I think that's another powerful tool to put in the toolkit.
Thank you. Let me follow up now on the number of homeowners that are receiving relief. And again, when you hear me talk about that legislation that was passed, we called it the Tax Fairness Package, the LOOP program that Council enacted, the Enabling Authority. We passed that in Harrisburg so that we can have the LOOP. We know Councilman Johnson and Squilla and others advocated passionately for it. Tell me about, when you look at LOOP and the homestead exemption in the city of Philadelphia, tell me how many Philadelphia residents do you believe are not taking advantage of this opportunity? And where are they?
Hi, we believe that right now there are 3 programs that any owner-occupant can be in, either the homestead or the LOOP, or if they have a 10-year tax abatement, they're not eligible for either of those 2. And of course, the senior tax freeze you can get in addition to your LOOP or your homestead. And so we think for those homeowner programs, we're at around 80% enrollment right now. And actually, and I believe the exact number is in the 5-year plan. We don't have really great data right now, but we'll work on it to provide you about where we think the unenrollment problems are. We tend to have some ideas and we focus that. So we're continuing to develop a variety of strategies to increase that enrollment figure.
So again, the 80% is pretty impressive, and I want to say that on the record, because if it was inverted in the other way, I would acknowledge that also. So the 80% I think is great. However, with that in mind, 20% of our residents are not taking advantage of it. So if there are any sort of innovative ways that we can partner together to make sure, especially if we know by district how many more families or homeowners could be benefiting from LOOP, how many more could be benefiting from homestead, it would be great if we can target that. My final question for this round, and I did ask it last year, is how many commercial properties, and we know that there are loopholes and sometimes people slide through the cracks, but I do want us to notice and acknowledge it for the record if it's occurring. Do we have commercial properties that are receiving the homestead exemption or LOOP benefits? And we know in the past there have been some. I just want you to give us an update on what corrective measures we have in place and how many do we know of have benefited?
Yes. So I don't have the actual numbers in front of me, but I can give you the background on the program. So we have our compliance unit doing audits on homestead and loops. We look for things, just as you said, properties that may be zoned commercial, other indicators that that the loop or homestead exemption is not properly being taken, and then we do audits. What we basically do is we contact that taxpayer, ask for proof, and if they're unable to supply the proof, then we remove the exemption from that. And I can get numbers to you of how many we've looked at and what the stats are on that.
Please forward that information to the president so it can be distributed to council members, because if you want to see some Philadelphia homeowners go through the roof, talk to them about a commercial business owner taking advantage of the homestead exemption and or loop, and they, because they're struggling, may have had to enter into a payment arrangement just because they're trying to do right and pay their taxes, and then they find out that a business is taking advantage of an opportunity that is meant for long-term owner occupants and regular Philadelphia homeowners. And I'll come back, Mr. President, on the next round.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Kiona Sanchez.
Good afternoon, or good morning, still morning. I want to respect the context in which the Council President started the meeting, that we will have an independent hearing specifically on some of the revenue strategies. But I think it's important that a couple of pieces be brought to the table, because I too have been critical, not of the people, because I work very closely, but of the policy, and since we're policymakers here. And you put it in your testimony, the issue of combining real estate and water to do foreclosures. Do you think, as a city with the poverty rate and working poor that we have, that we should be foreclosing for water debt to homeowner occupied properties?
I think that right now, in the context that it's being presented, it's not meant to apply to homeowners, owner-occupied properties. I think the context that we want to start sheriff sales for water is in terms of commercial properties, which really hasn't been done. There's some really high-value delinquencies out there that really seem to be prime for this tool, and I think it would be...
Then I think we should articulate that very
Okay.
strongly.
Yeah.
If we are saying we are not doing any owner-occupied delinquencies, you know how strongly I feel about owner-occupied from real estate and water. We should say that, and we need to be
Okay.
careful
Yeah.
about the messaging that we send.
That is the intent, and I think it's important to note also that, you know, the policy and kind of the philosophy of the department is we're never really wanting to sheriff sale a property, especially a homeowner's property. The goal here is to bring them into a payment agreement, and I think UPA has worked really
We
well.
want you to collect. We are very proud of our home ownership rate in the city, and I don't think anyone should lose their property because of a debt to the city, right?
Understood.
So I think we need to be very specific and articulate that, and as we promulgate regulations, that it is very clear that the city of Philadelphia has no intentions on foreclosing on folks, either for real estate or on owner-occupied, just because we've worked so hard on collection strategies to get people into compliance. I want to make that real clear. That said, in terms of a coordinated collection strategy, do we do property owner analysis? And how do we work with our collection agencies to go after what we've talked about being low-hanging fruit, what you just mentioned? We have property owners, investors. Are all those accounts coupled? Do we do an analysis, and how do we target those?
We really haven't done a detailed analysis because of information limitations in the past. I think the data warehouse is really going to help us to do that. Now that we'll have an array of information in one place, we can really get a view of that homeowner. The problem has been, to some degree, that not only is there a disconnect in being able to put the information together, but sometimes that's intentional too. So a homeowner or a property owner can use different names, different versions of the name, and with the limitations within our system, it's really hard for us to connect that one person owns multiple properties. With the data warehouse and all the data points in there, that'll be much easier, and we will try to put a more strategic approach to identifying the properties. Right now, we're pretty much working in just descending order of the balance owed. So we're just working the highest values, the highest delinquencies down.
No, and I know the data warehouse is important, but I also know that our vendors have better capacity on their data than we. And even if we're waiting to build up to ours, there's no reason why we can't have a coordinated strategy with our vendors to have those multiple accounts together, right? Because right now we refer out, and we're not giving them the ability to potentially do that, to see, the data set. So I think that's something we need to look at. This is the stuff we get publicly criticized for, right? Anybody can go on the internet, they can get the data, and they highlight for us the 200 worst delinquent folks. That's low-hanging fruit to me about the ability for us to say, we're going to spread out those accounts in 2 or 3 of our vendors and even internally and say, let's go after them. Because the ability to do multiple potential foreclosures on folks is there. I'm always concerned about us waiting until we have the perfect situation internally, which after 10 years here, it's never perfect. Right. So it's like we need to go after that because that's the public criticism that we get. And I think we just open ourselves to that. So I think that there's opportunities there that we don't have to wait for the data warehouse to get to.
I agree. And the good news is the data warehouse is up, so that's something we can start doing now. So It's not a down the road.
We have some new collection strategies with L&I and with the water department. I've started to see these because folks are coming into the office with this progressive firm that was hired. Is that a local firm to do L&I lien collections? And what's the strategy behind that and the expectation of collections based on that?
Progressive is one of our vendors. They are they're not a Philadelphia firm. They're in I think it's Essington, so they're just outside of Philadelphia.
Have we used them in the past? That's the first time I see that.
Yes, we've used Progressive
for what?
In the past. We've used them for business tax debt for sure. I know we used them, and water as well.
Okay, so what is the expectation on collections of that, and how far back are we going with some of those liens? Again, here this is about messaging. When people start getting these bills, if it's part of a collection strategy, when we don't know it as district council folks, and so we start getting folks approaching us saying, there's a debt from 20, 30 years, it would be nice, it would be helpful to have the strategy behind that. Most of the times we want to be supportive of that because it's a collection strategy. So what is the goal? Are they going to be only doing some of these old liens, L&I lien sales, or are they also going to be doing water?
Remember, they were not re-upped.
I know.
So, you have to stress that.
Okay. So we're in the process. We just closed out an RFP process for collection agencies. So Progressive is not one of the agencies which will be coming on, which will be renewed in July. So they have been on and they're working that portfolio. We have a total list of agencies which I can get to you. It's several, it's more than 6 agencies, and I can give you a detail of what each of those agencies is, what their portfolio is made up of.
Okay.
Right.
And I've been very vocal in the past about us adding collection agencies from outside the city and giving them low-hanging fruit versus some of the folks, collection agencies who've been here, who are local, who hire locally. And I know as we've changed our strategies, many of them, because of the lack of predictability, have laid off folks. We're very interested and very focused on having partners who hire people locally versus some of these national companies coming in.
And we were very conscious of that in this selection process.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Council Lady. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Gimm.
Thank you very much, Council President, and thank you, Mr. Breslin, to your department. Could you let me know what the collection rate, the yearly collection rate for taxes was in 2013?
Is there a particular tax, or we have it broken down by tax?
I think it would be the overall tax collection rate in 2013.
Okay.
And then I'll ask about 2014, 2015.
So what year are you asking? I'm sorry.
2013.
2013. I'm not sure that I have 2013 with me. We'll take a look. We can look for that while you...
How how about, what is your current yearly tax collection?
Let me just pull that.
Hi. So we have the information for calendar year 2014. Within 1 year, we were at 95.74% across all the taxes, plus a couple side fees like commercial trash. And within 2 years for calendar 2014, we were at 99.06%. For calendar year 2015, the within 1 year collections were 93.8%, and the percentage collected to date, which is about 2 years for the, or not even 2 years for the calendar year 2015, is 98.87 at this point. And we can happily break that out by tax type.
And if we were to just look at property tax rates, what would that figure look like over those 2 years?
Sure. For real estate tax, calendar year 2014, the 1 year collections rate was 93.53%, and collected to date is 97.64%. Then moving on to calendar year 2015, the within 1 year, we're at that 94.22, so a slight increase. And then to date on the calendar year 2015, we're at 96.32%.
I think it was reported at one point that 2015, I think when I had read about it, there was a reporting of 91% from 2015. Do you know what that is?
So what I'd want to double check, but in the CAFR, sometimes what they do is it's not a full year. It's the first 8 months of the year based on the timing, so that would probably be what that is. But once you get a full 12 months, then you get a higher number.
And the average is for comparable cities of our size would be, do you know what the collection rate would be?
We can pull that information for you, but definitely in the 90s there.
Yeah.
Some are below us, some are in the high 80s.
But the more likely tax collection rate, I think, for larger cities is around 96 to and up, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
we
I
can,
think
we
that
can pull that information.
And in part, it's just trying to understand a little bit about, obviously, just making sure that we're looking at the yearly collection rates. I think it matters. I understand that there's aging debt and things that get held on as legacy types of tax burdens that are going to be hard for us to measure, but I'm very interested in the yearly tax collection rate, especially for current year, because it should be very fresh and new properties that are on the market right now that we're collecting on, and I think it's important to track it. But I also think it's important to look at us in comparison with other cities and to recognize that a lot of cities are pushing towards the upper 90s is a lot of what I see. And so, towards that end, obviously every $1 billion is going to be $10 million in collectible, every percentage point that we're off is tens of millions of dollars. So I think it matters a lot about seeing the improvement. I know that all my colleagues share that, and I'm sure you share that too. I'm interested, though, I know that you said that you're getting tougher. One of the things I was happy to see was Councilman Taubenberger's bill last year, I think, that closed a transfer tax evasion loophole. Are there other types of loopholes that you're looking to close? Can you talk a little bit about the efficacy of closing loopholes in terms of improvement on collection?
I think that that's something that we're always looking at and identifying, and and that comes from different sources. So sometimes it's our auditors are out and they find an issue, and an issue may even go through the court system, and then we find out that it's just a simple change in the language that can close a loophole and lead to increased collections. And we had a case where there was essentially a loophole where the courts determined that credits and refunds, they really made a distinction. Although in our law there was no real distinction between a credit and a refund, our refunds, it said, had a 3-year statute for refunds. The court said that a credit was not a refund and that they could go back an unlimited amount of time. That cost us $6 million in tax just in 2 cases where that was the issue. So we've changed the law. work to change the law.
It didn't pass yet.
No, it didn't pass yet, but that's a good example of loophole, is that, there's pending legislation to close that loophole and save tax. So we're always looking for loopholes. I think it's kind of telling that one of the law firms, when that was introduced, one of their newsletters that goes out to their clients said, "The party is over." So identifying, that was on the real estate transfer tax loophole. So there really is a lot of power behind closing these loopholes. And the first step is identifying them.
And could you speak to what your projected tax collection rate that you think is going to be over the next 5 years? And does that will that reflect some of your energized compliance efforts and your tougher and more predictable strategies?
Yes, while Marissa's looking for numbers, just to speak in general, I think that we've been looking a lot at our trends, and it's really kind of telling how our collection numbers are increasing, our number of delinquents are decreasing. I think a number that's really telling, to me at least, is that, our first-time number of real estate delinquents. That means people that don't pay their tax in the first year, they don't owe any others, and they're starting down that road of delinquency. That number is down 53% since 2011. So it shows that, people realize that there's consequences if they don't pay, and more of them are coming into compliance.
So what is the projected tax collection rate over the next 5 years?
So what we have in the 5-year plan is for our FY18 target for the real estate tax is 94.6%, so a slight increase over the FY17 estimate, and we can come back with sort of longer range projections and other tax types.
And do you feel that that appropriately reflects the kind of aggressive and more focused attention to collection? Because a 94.2 to 94.6 over 5 years doesn't feel like that.
Oh, that's 1 year.
That's 1 year. So over the next 5 years, what does it look like?
So we don't have that with us, but we can go and look forward and see how that works.
And are you going to plan to have a projected tax collection? Yeah.
Councilor, you. If you could.
Okay, I'm trying to get the answer to the original question that I asked at the first outset, which is what's the overall tax collection rate that you're trying to get to over the next 5 years?
If you guys could answer
And
her
yeah.
original question, we can.
And I will come back to other stuff on the second round as well,
Right,
but
great
I'm trying to clarify what that answer is.
So we don't have a projection now for what the overall for all tax type projection collection rate is. It's something we track what it is, but we don't have a projection for what it will be, but we can look into that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Chair recognizes Councilman Down.
Thank you, Council President. Good morning.
Morning.
First, I want to just thank your team, and all of you there, for your cooperation this past year. You've been very cooperative with my office and myself, so thank you. And secondly, I just want to mention that in your request of city money, of your $30.492 million budget, you're only asking for $50,000. That's a good thing. But I also want you to think about over the next few years, technology can play a big role in the work that you do. And how can we implement more technology to create more savings in your department? Because I think one area of the city where technology can really help is in collections of taxes and revenue. And I'm looking at your report card, basically, and the report card for me, in one area, is your statement, the one-pager that has all the taxes listed, what's delinquent as of March 2017 versus last year, March 2017. And, it's better, but I had some questions on some taxes that are worse, and maybe you could just explain that. Example, the earnings tax is up. It was delinquent in March of $3 million, it's now delinquent $12 million. Just wondering why there's a big change in the earnings tax collection.
The reason for that is we did a big earnings tax initiative through utilization of the data warehouse. So we're actually increasing the delinquency there by doing assessments, and it will take some time for that money to roll in, but that has been a very successful compliance initiative. So it's important to note that sometimes the numbers are really affected by our compliance efforts. When we do a very large compliance initiative, we will bump up the receivable, and then there will be some time until the collections essentially catch up to that.
Okay. How about on realty transfer tax? I know last year in March it was 2.3, now we're up to 8.2. That I don't understand, because the transfer tax gets paid at the closing by the title company usually.
Right. So,
Is that enforcement, that you're going after people? That's what's causing that to be
we
higher?
do. We do enforcement, and with the transfer tax, when we do enforcement on some of these very large transactions, it can only be, one or two transactions
Right.
that really skew those numbers.
Is that the same for UNO? Because the UNO was 8,500,000 last year, now it's up to 12,200,000. Is that similar?
It could be, not to the same extent, though. There's something going on with UNO that we're analyzing right now to try to determine exactly the answer to your question. We don't know, because we don't have a really large-scale enforcement effort going on in that tax. So we're trying to analyze it and see what's going on there.
And the commercial trash fee, I know we've talked about this. Have we been working on leaning properties for the commercial trash fee?
Yes, we're in the process, and, the collection numbers still, they're improving, but I think there's still a lot of work to be done with commercial trash fee. This year, we'll be looking at commercial trash fee and other non-tax collections to see where there's opportunities there to improve collections.
Because the way it reads right now, we have, with penalties and interest, 29 million of commercial trash fees owed,
Yes.
but it's 16 million of principal. So, I mean, that's like a big area I think we can collect money on.
Yes.
And so, in the overview of the chart you gave us, I just want to clarify for this council's benefit. We write off bad debt after 10 years, is that correct?
Yes,
So this chart doesn't show, like...
for real estate tax.
Right, in the real estate world, for everybody's benefit, someone who owes us $100 from 30 years ago, we can still get paid today because it's a first lien on the real estate, comes before the lender. So in real estate, we really don't have to write it off.
That's correct.
Because when we did the National Taxing Study back in July, and Council President Clark was there and the mayor was there, they identified 492 million of delinquent real estate taxes. And the other point I wanted to make on that piece is that I know people are concerned about foreclosure. And the New York City method that we've been talking about, the securitization, just for the record, in the last 12 years, or 15 years rather, New York City has averaged, and they have 4 times the delinquency, they've averaged 18 foreclosures a year. 18. Because the goal isn't to foreclose. But without the threat or the hammer of foreclosure, you're never going to collect the money. And the best example is the Revenue Department 2 years ago did a tax lien sale for $17 million. And I think you told me, what was the collection rate on the first notice? 55%?
I don't have that in front of me, but I think that's...
So on one notice, 55%, which means we have no... It's a good method. We didn't have a strong hammer. One notice, 55. In New York City, after a 90, 60, 30, and 10-day notice, 85% of the people pay. Pretty amazing.
Our experience on that was, I think, on those, and Marco, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we generated $17 million on those pilot lien sales, and most of that money came in from payments before the sale of the lien. So
It's the threat of the notice that gets people to pay.
that's true.
In New York City, 85% of the people pay after 4 notices, which, by the way, if we did that, it'd be phenomenal. Just the 4 notices. So my point is that I know there's concern about foreclosure, but I think there's protections in the plan. Foreclosure is not the goal. If 18 in New York City averaged over the last 12 years, 18, we're 1/4. We're talking 4.5 foreclosures a year. And without the threat of some problem down the road, you're never going to have people pay. It's never going to happen. So you need that hammer. You need the hammer. And by the way, I think it should be in all areas of collection, because you said 94%, 93% of the citizens of the city pay their taxes. And I think you said in the report, we said 50 to 60% of the delinquency is commercial investment property owners. So who are we protecting? We should aggressively go after it. So as you probably know, I know the administration knows this, I am a big supporter of us doing our own process of collecting the delinquent taxes. And one other statistic I want to share, in the last 6 years, we invested $52 million in legal fees to collect delinquent taxes. Under the New York City program, it would have been about 7 or 8 million. Big difference. Thank you. Thanks for your testimony. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Bass.
Thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon. Good morning. How are you? So I had a couple of different questions. Number one, I wanted to thank you, Commissioner, and your entire team for all of the work that you've done on tax collection, revenue collection, and, you know, we've had such an issue with it here in the city of Philadelphia for such a long time. It's really refreshing that we can have a conversation about something that is concerning to us and that you have taken action on that. And so I just really wanted to thank you for that. I know we've been talking probably for over a year now about collection and what we could do better. And, you know, we sat down and we talked about payments when someone walks into a municipal services building and they talk to some folks and, you know, there was no standardized practice in terms of collection. And so if I walked in and I owed the city of Philadelphia $5,000 and I had $4,000, there's no guarantee that that $4,000 would be accepted. It might be, well, you need the whole $5,000, or it might be, you know, well, we'll take $4,500, but we won't remove any penalties or interest or anything. And so I think that in the progress that we've made, we've really come a long way. And again, I just wanted to thank you that with business customers in particular, it's no longer arbitrary in terms of what's going to be accepted and, you know, how that, what the process will be. It is now a standardized process for every person walking in the door. It doesn't matter if, you know, let's say if I'm having a bad day and maybe I don't feel like, you know, giving you the best deal possible, the process is standardized. And so I just really wanted to, number one, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I also wanted to talk about this standardized process now moving into individual tax accounts, because I know that it's actually the case for business customers, but it's not necessarily so for the average Joe walking in on the street who owes the city of Philadelphia money and you know, may not have all of the funds in hand at that time and is told, you know, sorry, we can't help you. So is there a plan afoot to address that issue as well?
There is. We started with, you know, it really came out of a conversation, so I thank you for your concern in this area. Came out of a conversation last year's budget hearing where you were concerned that people were coming in, as you described, with down payment money and were being turned away because it may not have been a high enough percentage or a high enough dollar amount. So we went back and looked at our practices and we piloted this new formalized process for business taxes. Now the same working group that put that together on my team is working with working that for non-owner occupied real estate. So that'll be the next one to roll out, should roll out within the next couple of months. Because owner occupied real estate, they have the UPA protection. So they're fine, that's all formalized, it's based on net income. Business taxpayers that come in now have the new, the business agreement format, and now we'll have it and rolled out for non-owner occupied real estate. And really the goal here is to get this rolled out across all taxes, across all types of taxpayers.
When do we expect that to be in effect, that we'll have, you know, a standardized policy and procedure across the board?
I would hope by the time we talk again at next year's hearing that all of that will be in place.
Next year? That long?
Well, that it'll all be in place, but maybe
Okay.
sooner, but I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver.
Okay.
But like I said, the one piece we have in place already. And the reason I talk about it in a longer length of time too is kind of we're piloting it. So we really want to do some comparisons to see how this affects delinquencies, how this affects breach and default rates, because the goal here is if we make the payment terms manageable for a taxpayer, then they're not going to breach, and they're going to be able to stay in those payment agreements, and it's going to help our overall delinquencies and reduce the breach rates. But you know, so that's the theory, but we actually want to measure that and see if it works in practice.
Okay. And one other quick question, just going back to the business customers. So if a business customer walks in today, that like across the board, no matter who they talk to, they're going to get the same information. I just want to be clear about that. Okay.
Yes. Well, let me qualify that though, so that you fully understand. It really depends on it's formalized, but it depends on, there's different terms depending on where they are in the process. So if somebody comes in and it's a first-time delinquent, that may be different than somebody who has had multiple agreements in the past and defaulted.
But even that has been standardized.
It all has been standardized.
Right, because when we sat down and worked on that, I remember that you had said, well, the policy is this for this person. If they've missed multiple payments, then the policy now becomes this. If they have this percentage down, that's how this factors in. It's very well scripted, so there's no variance in terms of the information that's provided.
That's correct.
Okay, super. One other thing I wanted to mention to you was, was collection of the liquor by the drink tax. And one of the things that we've been working on in my district and really throughout the whole city of Philadelphia is on stop and goes, which I assume you're familiar with, Mr. Commissioner. These establishments which sell, they're supposed to sell food and be restaurants, but often they're just liquor establishments. So they usually sell beer and snacks. And in some cases, they sell shots of liquor as well. And so one of the things that we found was that they don't fit the real requirements to be a restaurant. 90% of the ones in my district don't have restrooms, which they're supposed to have for their customers. They don't have, a variety of food. They might have one item of food, noodles or something like that. And they don't have the things that a standard restaurant would have. It's really just, again, a liquor establishment. So, and I'll be brief because I know I heard the bell ring. But for years, we know that Revenue was unaware that this liquor sale was now occurring in these establishments. And so if they were unaware that, that they're selling shots of liquor, there can't be any enforcement or collection. If you don't know it's happening, then you can't collect. And so I had a question in terms of what have we done to address the collection that was occurring? Are we going back, let's say, to Cindy's beer hoagie takeout and saying, Cindy, you've had this liquor license since, 2008. We only started collecting from you in 2016, so we know that there were liquor sales in between. Are we addressing that issue, and are we addressing the overall issue of liquor by the drink sales, which of course goes to our school district and is so very important?
Right, so there's a couple of issues there. First, in terms of the look back, we have the ability to look back. We have a 6-year look back for filed returns. Generally, we do 3-year under audit, but we can do, essentially, we can do an unlimited look back if the taxpayer was doing, willful non-filing, and, there's other statutes. So my answer there is if we find it, we can go back. We can go back as far as it existed. In practice, we'll do 3 years if it's just a mistake. We'll go at least 6 years or further if it's something that was willful. In terms of the selling the shot by the glass, that is really hard for us to identify through an audit process. We will if we see that for some reason they're buying liquor. So one of the things that we use the data warehouse for now, but we were doing even before the data warehouse, was we get liquor LCB information. So we see liquor purchases, and we can kind of do markups on that and assess. So if they're buying liquor, we know they're selling liquor, and if they're not registered, we'll assess that.
Is that being done across the board?
It is.
Okay, so
It is.
all establishments that have a liquor license in the city of Philadelphia, you're checking to find out how much liquor they're buying and how much tax revenue is generated into the
Yes.
city? Okay, very good.
Thank you, Councilman.
Okay, thank you.
Chair recognizes Councilman O.
Thank you, Council President.
Welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I just have one question. I'm not really clear on this, so I'm just looking for information. Regarding the revenues related to the sale of sodas, I have been told, without really a basis to know this, but what is the role of the city in doing its investigation? For example, the concern that I hear is that the city will send inspectors to a business, look at the receipts to try to see that the sodas, for example, were bought in Philadelphia, and then take a look inside the store to see if there's any proof that sodas were bought outside of the city without paying the beverage tax.
Okay. Well, I think that when our investigators go out, they certainly do a site inspection to see what products are being sold. And then they will request the invoices to see if essentially those products match up, because there could be a product that is being sold that does not appear on the invoices, and then the question would be, where is that product being purchased?
Has the Revenue Department typically done these type of site inspections? I mean, this is new for soda, but it's done other types of inspections, I suppose?
It is. It's kind of routine for our investigators when we do it in different contexts. Sometimes they just do a commercial corridor and they'll just go into businesses to check licenses, to see what products are being sold, see if there's any products being sold that are subject to a tax that that establishment is not registered for. So it's really just a little bit of a variance on what our investigators have done.
But it sounds to me like it's something new. In other words, if I were a city inspector, I might want to take a look at what items are being displayed, look at some accounting to make sure that everything, there isn't too much of a cash business going on. But now if I'm going to do a site inspection and I'm going to go look at the basement, look in the back, look upstairs for evidence of sodas purchased outside the city, that would be a new role for...
That would be a new role, and I'd have to check with our compliance unit to the extent that they're doing kind of a full premises inspection. I don't really have information that that's what's going on. It's more of just the retail space, not
Okay.
to go through the whole building. But it is new. You're correct. The tax is new. Our enforcement of the tax is new. We're learning new things, every week. My deputy for tax meets with the investigation unit on a regular basis to find out what they're doing, what they're finding, and make sure that, we're doing appropriate investigation, and also to refine the process. So by all means, it's new, and this is a learning process, and.
Does the Revenue Department do this for cigarettes, or no? That's not.
We don't do it for cigarettes. Pennsylvania Department of Revenue handles cigarette tax
Okay.
enforcement, but we have the other tax, that tax on other tobacco products,
Right.
and we do it for those purposes. So we go in and we see what other tobacco products that might be taxable are being sold. So we check the shelves and that kind of thing. We're not at the level of what the Pennsylvania Department of Revenue does for bootleg cigarettes, where they use, sniffing dogs and
Right.
do really, that's more of a criminal investigation. We don't have a criminal investigation unit.
The city is hiring new inspectors, maybe not new revenue folks, but I understood that the city was going to hire some new staff, some new inspectors. Is that falling under revenue for these type of searches?
I think the inspectors that you're referencing are under L&I, that L&I is, I think I saw maybe during their hearing that they're hiring new inspectors. We have already hired our investigators, our additional staff for the beverage tax. So they've gone through their training, they've been on the street. I talked a little earlier about, our philosophy for the enforcement. It started as really outreach to go out, and we wanted to assure that the retailers knew what was expected of them and what their requirements were. So the same people that are now doing the enforcement on the back end were the ones out there doing outreach and informing. So it wouldn't be unusual for a retailer to have met the particular investigator when they were doing outreach, and now for that same investigator to be back there saying, okay, we talked about what you needed to do, now it's time, I need to see the invoices. So they really know what's expected and they know the process.
Right. I'll just, from a policy point, just give my 2 cents on this topic. The soda tax, it's it's there. It presents some difficulties, because you can buy sodas outside the city and they didn't pay the tax. But the thing that concerns me is that when we want to collect that tax, it creates problems too. And I'm very concerned that we don't cross a certain line. I know people may get away with something, but I think it's worse if we start having government officials inspecting, going back, looking through things. A lot of people live in the businesses, above the businesses, and it just creates a real big misunderstanding. Me personally, I never liked the aggressive use of stop and frisk, because you're violating people's constitutional rights. And at the end of the day, for whatever crime you stopped, you got a whole bunch of people who won't work with the police, who don't trust law enforcement. And I think, we really rely on the voluntary cooperation of these store owners for the most part. And I'm just saying, I wish to be very careful there.
Yeah, and from a compliance standpoint, I wholeheartedly agree that, first is most, we've been talking about the 9 out of 10 taxpayers that pay voluntarily, and that's what we're really trying to stimulate is voluntary compliance. And then it is a fine line when we do our compliance, and we really want to do responsible enforcement, and that's with the soda tax. So I'll definitely talk to the compliance group and make sure that what's being done is, proper and responsible and appropriate.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Parker.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Welcome.
Let me just, for the record, and I need to make sure I do this because my team is watching, and we needed to publicly thank, for the record, you and your team, but they wanted me to shout out Lisa Walker, Mary Ann Finley, and Brooke Darlington. Apparently, we overwhelmed them with constituent concerns, and they are always very patient and responsive, so we wanted to say thank you to them. It's always important to thank the rank and file.
Thank you for that. Yeah, appreciate that.
On the record.
They're great.
Commissioner, tell me this. How long do we hold a real estate, or even whether it's residential or commercial, how long do we hold an account in its delinquency before it's transferred to one of our collection agencies? Tell me if there's a trigger. Does Sherelle Parker have to be delinquent for $1,000, $5,000? Is it a dollar amount trigger? Is it an amount of time? How long before an account is transferred to a collection agency?
Okay. It's a great question. I think it's a combination of things. I'll try to answer. It's a little complicated, but I'll try to answer it as best I can. In real estate, we'll start with real estate because it's different based on the tax. But in real estate, the tax, of course, is due March 31st, doesn't become delinquent till December 31st. So what we do there, though, and something we started back, I believe, in 2012, is as soon as it becomes overdue, April 1, we send out a bill. We make sure that they get that first overdue notice. And then, once they've had time to respond to that overdue notice, we put those out to a collection agency. We use 2 collection agencies for that process. The collection agency works that account, works that delinquency until December 31st. So they have it while it's overdue. In November of that year, we send out a notice, or the collection agency send out a notice that basically tells the delinquent what's going to happen if they don't pay by December 31st, which is it becomes delinquent, there's going to be legal fees attached, all of the bad things that will happen once it becomes delinquent. If that delinquency isn't paid by December 31st, comes back to the city. We have some internal processing to do. We have to place liens, do what we need to do, let them know that we're going to put it out to a law firm, at which point we essentially, not exactly evenly, but we divide that up 3 ways. Some we keep internal in the law department to work, and then a third we put out to one of our co-counsels, and another third to the additional co-counsel. And then they'll work that as co-counsel to the city. So they'll work the legal process of collection. On business taxes and other taxes, it's a little bit different. We need at least 1 bill, so everybody gets at least 1 delinquent bill, and time to respond to that. And then at such time, we have, I believe it's 2 vendors right now that work our early collection work. So
Early.
So we want to get those out as quickly as possible. We've had some, it's not as easy as it would seem to kind of get these out systematically and regularly. We're working really hard to do that, and we've been getting better at it. The goal is, and I hope to be there this year, is that every month, or at the latest, you have to have a volume of delinquency to warrant a monthly referral. But if not monthly, then every quarter, all the new delinquents, everyone who's become delinquent, has received 1 bill and hasn't paid by the due date, they would go out. So constantly going out to delinquents. And then we're developing the strategy. So, we have vendors who work the early collection stuff, and then basically 9 months to a year, maybe less, they work it. We have to analyze the data. Then it comes back in and goes to a new vendor. So we basically recall it and get it out to a new vendor, because with the thinking that if you didn't collect it in that 6 to 9 months, then, maybe somebody else needs to work that, and we put it into a different. So that's kind of
Again-
how things work, but the theory here is get it out, get collection action as soon as is feasibly possible.
And we wanted to note that for the record, because as I look at this data that you reference here today, and I think about particularly the long-term owners in the city of Philadelphia, and, if I appear to be a tad bit biased relative to this constituency, I am. While we want all of the growth and new development that we can get, there is a base of Philadelphia homeowners who've been that real estate tax base for a long time. And these are the people who their home is their primary number one asset. Many of these folks are home poor. That's how we often refer to them. And they've said, Sherelle, we don't know what we would do if we couldn't have an agreement. And we just want to make sure that we're being as aggressive as we possibly can and in a timely manner collecting from those, across the board. Finally, I want to say to you, the e-file and the e-pay options, the technology, it was mentioned, and you can reply to us in writing, but I want you to tell us about the credit card processing fees. I've just had angst about them when you have bill pay systems, and it's not just for the city of Philadelphia, but if you use a bill pay system with our utilities, there's usually an additional fee. And I believe that our fee, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, we have a 2.5% credit card processing fee associated with the e-file and the e-pay. My ask of you is to see whether or not, and I don't know if it will be possible, but some credit card companies may waive all of the fees or a portion of the fees for nonprofits. So if I owed a nonprofit and wanted to pay using my card, in some instances it's waived. I don't know if government is too big of a customer for them to consider waiving for us. I'm just asking if we would make the ask on the record and forward the response to the council president so he can distribute.
Absolutely, and that's timely information, because right now there's an RFP out for potentially a new vendor to do our e-pay. So we'll be selecting a vendor and negotiating the price in the coming months. So it's great timing for that comment.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. We're going to do Councilman Johnson, and then we're going to take a quick break so we can go over to the Veterans event and come back and conclude revenue. Chair recognizes Councilman Johnson.
Thank you, Council President. How you doing, Commissioner?
Good. How are you?
Just a couple small questions. So I know right now I'm currently, and I'm going over the information from my colleague, Councilman Allen Down, but nevertheless, just for the record, there's a proposal for the tax lien securitization program that the administration is currently reviewing, and possibly in the near future will put out an RFP to collect debts and tax liens. And so I want you, just for the record of members of council, just to give currently the administration's position, particularly on this particular proposal. How will it be different from the former proposal under Governor Arundel in 1997? Two, how are we protecting owner-occupied residents? Three, in the event that some of these liens are accidentally placed, so what's the safeguards in place or the process to actually address those issues? And I want to get an overview of this trust that will be created. Who will monitor that trust? Who's appointing the people to sit on the trust and make sure, first and foremost, that individuals who are owner-occupied units still have the same rights as they were if they didn't, to make sure that their homes aren't actually taken. That's it.
Okay. So first, we've been, the Department of Revenue has been looking at proposals from various vendors. There's a lot of different models out there for lien sales. So we've really been trying to look at those models, figure out what works best for us. It's complicated. I think things, to one of your points, things are much different than 97. I mean, just the data, analytics, it's a totally different world today. What we're able to do and with those analytics, the capability makes this a much better process than it was back then. One of the other things is that, you mentioned really the New York model that Councilman Dom has mentioned, which is the securitization model. It's the model that New York has been using. Coincidentally, they started that in '97 or around then, so the same time that we did a lien sale. They've continued to use that. So they've had great success with that. To Councilwoman Gims' point, they've been able to get that first year pay up to like 98%. So we're really analyzing what we're doing and the progress that we're making, and comparing that to these models and specifically that model, and to see where the lift is for us, if there's lift, and where that will take us. But while we do that, we have the same concerns that you have. We want to make sure that homeowners are protected. One of the big pieces of homeowner protection that may be different than New York is that we have UPA here, which is a great protection. I mean, bottom line is anyone who's UPA eligible, at least at this point, I don't see them really being a candidate for securitization. So that is, that could change, but right now, the way I would understand it is they wouldn't be a great
Under what
candidate.
circumstances would it change?
We haven't made a final decision, and we haven't sat down. If we decided to do it, we haven't sat down with the vendor and really discussed it in depth. We haven't done the agreement with the trust. I think where we have a lot of control, and one of the advantages of this particular model is, unlike a bulk sale or just a full-blown lien sale where you put them out there and somebody buys the lien and then they do the collection, and we're really out of the mix and we have no control, and maybe there's that reduces some of the safeguards for homeowners. Within securitization, we stay in control, right? We're going to be the ones who make the contract, if you will, with the trust, and we will dictate what those terms are. And as I said, as we see it right now, I think UPA is the big relief. We want that to be the case. As I said earlier, to Councilwoman Sanchez, is that we don't want to be, the goal here is not to be selling properties. I think the councilman made a great point of how few properties actually went to sale in New York under using the securitization model. So that is not really our goal. It really is to drive people either to pay or to get into payment agreements, and UPA is really a great tool. I mean, we worked really closely with council, the Revenue Department and the Law Department, and others worked for about 18 months, it seemed like longer, but 18 months to come up with UPA so we could put those protections in place. They're valuable. We value them as a department. We brought on administrators to help people get enrolled in these. That's really where our mindset is. So I think, I think we're aligned there.
And the trust, what would the trust look like? Who's appointing who to sit on the trust?
I don't know all the details of that at this point, and how that would be structured, but definitely, again, it's essentially a contract and agreement between the city, the trust, the servicers, and we have a lot of say in that, and we would want to build those protections into the trust.
So I just wanted to say for the record.
I'm sorry, but I missed one other point.
Sure.
And I don't want to, you also asked if something goes into the trust. And that's a great point. If something goes into the trust in error, and we know that can happen, errors can happen, we would have the ability to pull that back out of the trust.
Good.
And we would either have to put a replacement property into the trust, or we would have to give compensation for the value and pull that back out.
Wait, back that up. Explain just those last two parts about the compensation or replace another
so
property.
So if we put a
same
property
value
into the trust and it's part of the agreement, then the way I understand it in the New York model is then we have the ability to say that shouldn't have gone in, we want to pull that property out, and then we replace it with another property or some value for that. Because, the process has started, the trust has built that, they're moving, they're building a portfolio which they're then going to securitize, and they don't want to, they want to be able to secure that and kind of lock in the value of that trust. So, and I can talk to you more about the details of that if you have
now
specific
I'm following up
questions.
with my colleague as well. I mean, obviously, we want to make sure people pay their taxes. We also want to do the carrot with the stick approach, which I clearly understand. Obviously, I represent a district that's very diverse with a couple of the parts of the neighborhoods that I represent are clearly gentrified, and a part of that process is people losing their homes, and we're getting phone calls about the bulk of the work that I do is trying to help people stay inside their homes, or even an event that's addressing the issues of all tax-related issues regarding payments to the city of Philadelphia. And so I'm just proceeding with caution. I want people to pay their taxes. We don't want deadbeat people who are taking advantage of the system and not paying it, but we also know that there are some good folks who get behind and so forth that need support. And so I will be following up with yourself as well as my colleague as well.
Thank
Moving
you.
forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. We're going to take a brief recess. We're going to go pay our tribute and honor to our veterans, and we'll be back.
Okay.
Probably be about a half an hour. Come back up. Thank you. I have one real quick question. I know I said I wasn't going to ask any questions today, but I do have a question. I saw a person yesterday. Actually, this probably is more of an OPA question. As I think about it, it's more of an OPA question. It's about the change in land values. So, okay, that's it. I'm going to recognize Councilman Don.
Thank you, Council President.
Right.
I have a few minor questions, but I'd be remiss if I didn't ask them. This is just a question in general. If you have more than 20 properties and you walk into the municipal services building to pay the water bills, as an example, you're only allowed to pay 10 at a time. Is there any reason they got to go back to the end of the line and start over again?
Honestly, I didn't know. I'd have to check if that is actually the policy, because I thought we had changed that. It may have been at a certain peak time that they enforce that, because the line is so long and it would take so long to do the 20 or more bills. But I can check on that and get back to you what the policy is.
Be great. And we had OIT in here, I think, a week or two ago, and I know your department allocated $6.6 million in postage for fiscal year 18, and we've talked about computerizing the real estate tax bills, water and sewer, and I'm wondering if there's anything else that, from the revenue department and billing, that we could computerize.
Well, I mean, in terms of, one of the things that we really, that is in our plan and our major initiative in terms of computerization or technology is replacing our more than 30-year-old TIPS system, which is the accounting system. And the modern systems, I mean, there's a lot of limitations with an old mainframe system like that. Billing is one of them. It's a difficult process to change bills, to add text to bills. It's also difficult to build electronic interfaces so that customers, taxpayers can actually go in, see their account, cancel accounts, make changes to their accounts, make payments. So I think that would be the biggest thing that we could do. I think that would help our collections. It would reduce postage. It would make us more efficient. So I think that's the biggest.
I think it's a good idea. Where does that stand right now?
We're in the process of starting that. There's money, there's $20 million budgeted in the capital budget. We're in the process of bringing in experts to guide us through the RFP process.
So, I mean, one of the questions I wanted to ask, I'm not sure at your department or whose it is, but I'll ask the question anyway, is that I'm hoping that if we put in this new computerized system for real estate tax bills and water and sewer, that they'll also communicate with L&I, so we have like a platform where everybody can see all the information. So that, one of the bills that we put through back in June was to make sure that people who owe the city money can't pull a building permit. So if we can have this computerized, it'll make it a lot easier across the board.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the things we've learned through implementation of the data warehouse is the more that systems can talk to each other and the more that departments can share information, the more efficient we can be. And I think that, we've done that to some degree. We've worked with L&I in the Eclipse system as they bring that on, and we would do that with OPA as a new CAMA system comes on.
Well, I guess my question is, they told us at OIT when they were here, they're putting out a request for proposal. And my question is, are we looking at a system that will communicate among the departments? If we're going to a new system, I would like to see us have one that everyone can communicate with and you have access to. So if L&I has, someone pulls a permit, they can pull up the person's name, they can say, wait a second, they owe X amount in real estate taxes, water and sewer, and they have to be cleared up.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about that, or you're not involved with
I
that?
don't know. I mean, I know, I can speak kind of anecdotally from our department. I mean, one of the challenges that we've had is that as these new systems come on, there's still a challenge to integrate them into an old system like our TIP system. So that's one of the advantages of having a repository where at least all these systems can talk to the repository and then the departments can pull out of that repository. But really, I think it's more of an OIT issue.
Okay. The other, last year, I know we talked about, at the time you were here last year, BERT taxes delinquent were like 136 million. And I think they're lower today. Were they like 70 or 80 million, roughly? And I know you put out a request for information to try to find a vendor that we could possibly sell that delinquency and monetize it. And did we not have anyone respond to that?
We had one response. We met with that vendor. We have not, it was an RFI, so it was not an RFP. We were just looking to get information, learn a bit about this process. We had one response. We had meetings with that particular vendor. We did learn a little bit about the process. We've kind of backburnered it while other things were more pressing. But one of the things that we did learn through that process that there was not a lot of interest in that, and it seemed that the sale would be at a very, very deep discount. Yes.
Another question I have is, if somebody who owns multiple properties, is there any way to consolidate bills, especially when they go to the same payee? Because otherwise the city, somebody could own 25 properties and we send them 25 bills, 25 postage, but if we computerize that, that makes it easier. But is there any way to consolidate these multiple property owners?
Within our system right now, it's really difficult to do that. Under a new system, that would be something we'd look for, that capability to be built in. And also that's something that we would look for to be, we would look for that capability within an e-billing system as well. Because my hope would be that owners of multiple properties would want to opt in to an electronic billing system.
Yeah. The other comment I wanted to make on your performance measures, I'm very impressed. In fiscal year 16, I'm going to read from your performance measures. Under a category that's special to me, the earned income tax credit preparation, you had 17,000 returns, I guess, you helped prepare. And in fiscal year 18, or fiscal year 17, you'll be at 25,000, which is like almost a 50% increase.
Yes, I think the numbers in right now are over $20,000. 20,000 returns that were prepared for free. And, what's impressive there is, we've talked a lot about all the money that's left on the table, and we get that money back into people's hands. And the other side that we don't often talk about is the fact that it's free tax preparation. So it's saving, these taxpayers a lot of money in preparation fees as well.
Do we have any statistics for this past year as to how much money we left on the table? Has that come out yet?
It actually takes a couple of years to get the data from the IRS about what was filed for and what we estimate the gap to be. So unfortunately, there is a lag. We did, however, just get the data for our first year, so this was the third tax season that we've had this. We were able to look at the number of folks claiming for our first year, and so it takes time, but we'll be able to have that. But the first year looks good, so we think as we've continued to ramp up both our support of free tax prep as well as our outreach, it's only going to get better.
But the statistic you do have is the number of returns that you helped complete, and that statistic from 16 to 17 was up 50%.
Yeah, we did increase our funding for that too.
Right.
So.
But would we also be able to find out from Campaign for Working Families, United Way, and all the other parties that are involved in this, if their return numbers increased, decreased, or stay the same? Because that would give you some indication as to how we're doing.
Yeah, and so we get that information from the two partners we fund. So that's the Campaign for Working Families, what they do in Philadelphia, as well as the contracts with Pathways and their partner SEBA. An interesting thing for us will also be looking in the future about electronic returns. A lot of our outreach might drive people to go and do the myfreetaxes.com. So you won't see that in the statistic about the ones that we've supported for in-person prep. But it's also a great thing if somebody gets that information and is able to file on their own for free as well.
Okay, thank you. Can I ask one more question while we're here? I want to make sure I understand your performance measures under the water. It says percent of water bills paid in 90 days, and the statistic is 87%. Do you know what the collection rate is on water and sewer?
Michelle Bethel, Deputy Revenue Commissioner. So our collection rate for current billings this year is 88%.
88%?
Yes, and for our first year, so those bills that are due and collected in the current year, we then typically pick up another 2 to 4% in years 2 and 3, which gets us to 90 to 94. And then for our 4 years to 15, we pick up another 1%, so that's a total collections of 95%.
And how much today, as we sit here, is due in water and sewer delinquency in total?
Today, March numbers, total on the books is $392 million.
392 million of water and sewer delinquent?
Yes. And that's overall receivable. That's receivable.
That
That's
number
not the
seems to be
delinquent.
climbing.
For the overall receivable, yes, our numbers went up from the end of the 2016 from the CAFR that was reported, but our delinquency for that same period of time for 2015 is $255 million. That's the delinquency. So that's what we're actively
Are you saying that you're writing off debt that's greater than 10 years, is 255?
We're writing off debt that's greater than 1 year. We charge that off of our financials.
Right. But water and sewer are a lienable
Correct.
item.
Correct.
So if you don't write it off, if the total's 392?
Yes, that includes everything, yes.
And what do we bill in total in water and sewer?
Our billings for 2016, our total billings for 2016 was, our gross was 615, was gross billings for 2016, and our net
How
billing.
much was 2016 gross?
615, rounded up, 615
615 million?
million, yes. Gross, that was gross billings for 2016.
So to get to a delinquency of 392, that's a lot of years of delinquency. Because if your collection rates today are between 90 and 95%, 10% of 615 is just 61 million. You're at 392.
Well, just to clarify, the collection factor is based on our net billings and our current billings for that same period of time. So that's how we get to the 88%. So our net billings was 595. Our current collections off of the billings was 526. That's how we get to the 88%.
So if I'm correct, if I was looking at the total billing receivables of the city of Philadelphia, I have your monthly sheet, which is the total is 583 million as of March, but that's writing off about 180 to 200 million dollars of real estate taxes that are greater than 10 years. If we add that back in, and we add in the water and sewer, we're between 1.150 billion and 1.2 billion in delinquent overall taxes. Not all collectible, but that's potential. Would you say
Added
that?
in water and real estate, you were
I
saying?
added water and sewer in, I added the old real estate taxes in, because they're collectible. It's between 1.150 billion and 1.2.
Total on the books. Your math sounds accurate.
Okay, so we have to work on whittling that number down. Thank you very much. Thank you, Council President.
Yeah, Councilman, there was no limit, but there are other members now. Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilman Heenan.
Thank you, Council President. I'm just going to go off of the hearing for a moment for a point of personal privilege with your approval. You know, today, with your leadership, it's the 6th annual Veterans Affairs event across the street on the MSB Plaza, and we are joined here by 2 recipients that I was proud to honor that are in my district at today's event on your behalf. One is Robert Stevens, who retired after 38 years in a 913th Airlift Wing from the Air Force, and also Alexander Haranze, who is of the young age of 95 years old, who is one of the oldest survivors of Pearl Harbor. So I want to congratulate you both for your years of service. It's a pleasure and an honor, and thank you for joining us here today. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your service. Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman McGinn.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about tax abatements and how they're looking. So I'm trying to get a little bit of grounding on the tax abatements right now and the amount of, I don't know if you've calculated the current value. Were they all to be at value of the current crop of tax abatements that are out there? Do you have a number for that?
I do not have a number. We can get something to you.
And have you, could you help me understand what it would look like, for example, if there were modifications to the abatement program? So for example, could you project out what revenue might look like, for example, if the abatements were to sunset within 10 years as opposed to be like held for 10 years and then, you know, have the money come through? What would that look like? How would that impact revenue? What do you think would be the impact on that?
We could,
So we, about a year, 18 months ago, had an analysis done by a real estate analytics firm that was able to model out a variety of different scenarios, and we'll be able to share that.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah.
And did any of the scenarios also include a cap on the abatements?
I'm trying to, we'll take a look and see what they were, I forget, and when you say cap, we can talk to figure out exactly what that means, but we looked at, you know, if timelines were shortened or if the amount of abatement wasn't 100% in all
That's
cases. Right. And then it looked at the impact on revenues to both the city and school district with and without at those various things.
I mean, in part, like, for example, if abatement was capped at, say, 500,000 or, you know, even slightly higher for value of the property, what percentage of abatements would be excluded and or included within that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think we did have a definite analysis of the type of properties. One of the things that we learned from that was that basically every affordable housing development in the city has benefited from the tax abatement
Yes,
program. So
I'm fully aware
it
of
did
that,
break
right.
out by type of property, and I can go look and see if it also had the value of the property in addition to the type, but that'll provide some of that insight.
Okay, and when was that analysis done?
I believe it was about 18 months ago. 18 months? Yeah, about About 18 months ago.
And was that done at the request of any particular entity?
I think I'm now going to look into my
Yes,
wristband, and it
that's
seems
fine.
like it's time for Rob to answer.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So there was a specific proposal from a council member about modifying abatements,
Yes.
and another council member asked that we analyze the impact of that abatement. So we used that to analyze kind of different scenarios with abatements.
And those were only just shared with the individual council members?
No, I think that was made public.
Was it?
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, if you could send that over, that would be great.
sure thing, we will.
That. All right, thank you very much, Council President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilman Dow.
Thank you, Council President. I just want to share with my colleague some statistics that I know you're going to love. In 2026, the city of Philadelphia, according to a recent report, is going to get $169 million of new taxes. 55% goes to the schools, Helen. By the way, of the statistics of the properties abated, this is factual information. Of our total abated properties, only 2.8% were over $1 million, which surprised me. I thought there'd be more. 2.8 over $1 million, 67% under 400,000, 25% workforce housing. And here's the more important statistic, why that abatement was so good. I think you were here when that happened, Council President?
Councilman, I was trying not to say anything, but if you keep talking, you're going to get me on a roll about that tax abatement. So go ahead. I'm telling you, you're great.
I have one more statistic, then I'll shut up.
Go ahead.
The housing starts in the suburbs since '99, 11%. In the city, 378%. So clearly, that was a great tool at that time. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. I want to thank you very much for your testimony. I'll see you all at the next hearing, the real hearing. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Next up, we have the Board of Revision of Taxes. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Council President, members of council. My name is Carla Pagan, Executive Director of the Board of Revision of Taxes, and I'm here this afternoon to testify on the fiscal FY18 operating budget. Just so you all know, the Board of Revision of Taxes general fund appropriations from FY15 to FY18 has remained fairly consistent since the completion of AVI market value appeals. The FY18 proposed budget is $80,214 above the FY17 current projection. Since the 2014 citywide assessment, the volume of market value appeals has returned to normal levels. Approximately 4,500 appeals were filed for tax year 2017. For those appeals, non-oral appeal hearings began last fall, and the oral hearing schedule started this January. And by December 31st of this calendar year, we expect that all 2017 market value appeals will be complete or have decisions rendered. In addition, preparations for tax year 2018 are well underway. We are forecasting an increase of appeals due to the citywide reassessment of C&I or commercial industrial buildings. Normally, those types of appeals are 30% of the appeal volume, but for 2018, we're expecting approximately 70% of the appeal volume to come from commercial and industrial accounts. And typically that C&I or commercial industrial hearing season is longer as those appeals require additional testimony and appraisal and other information to support reductions in market value. So that concludes the testimony today. I'm open to questions if there are any.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Just had a couple of questions. Just referencing your testimony, you're expecting closer to 70% of appeal volume as opposed to the usual 30%. And that's primarily due to the reassessment of commercial, industrial, mixed-use, and institutional buildings.
Correct.
How did you come to that figure of 70%? Is it based?
It's really based on the last 20 years of history. So typically, of all the appeal volume, 70% comes from residential homeowners and 30% from commercial industrial. So we're expecting a flip, almost a reverse of that information, because the OPA has said that they've sent out, well, we know they sent out hearing notices or notices of changes to 100% of the commercial industrial market. So, and there are very few residential property owners that will get changes in their assessment.
Okay.
So that's what that's based on.
So, in terms of the percentage of appeals lost or won, depending on what side of the equation you are, do you anticipate any difference, or do you think there will be less appeals because of the volume, or the same percentage, same ratio?
Well, we're hoping for we're anticipating the total appeal volume to increase by 50% next year. So, I mean, you can see from the numbers that we average between 4,000 and 5,000 appeals per year. So if we get under 10,000 for 2018, we'll be pleased.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the reason I asked that because, Councilman Dom just referenced the new dollar figure in terms of revenue as a result of the commercial reassessment. A lot of people are excited about that, particularly the school district, and hopefully this will allow them to conclude that PFT contract like yesterday. And at the end of the day, there are some things that we like to do, and potential investments, maybe some tax restructuring. So we're concerned about the appeals process, why we're excited about the number, but we don't know how much that number will get pared down based on it going through the traditional process.
Yeah, so I think, I forget the percentage Rob was saying that the city allocates for, the revenue percentage the city allocates for appeal reductions.
So we're building in the potential loss of revenue based on appeals?
Yes, and I know that percentage has increased by a couple percent for tax year 2018, just for the volume and the dollar volume of the amount being appealed versus the quantity.
We'll let Mr. DeBoe go on the record, might as well.
Yeah, we built in appeal losses.
Just state you.
Rob DeBoe, Finance Director. We built in appeal losses of 20% in our projections, which is higher than they had been in the last couple of years.
Okay, so we're being real conservative in terms.
We hope so.
That's so. Yeah. All right. Thank you. Well, I'm saying conservative in the sense that we're going to lose more than we traditionally.
I knew what you meant, yes.
Yeah. Thank you. We have in our 5-year plan, page 297, according 4,000 appeals were filed for tax year 2017. Can you tell me what the aggregate assessed value that were challenged as a result of that? It's kind of a tricky one.
I don't have value numbers. I have appeal quantity numbers, and typically the Office of Property Assessment runs numbers on that dollar figure, actually, and they go straight to finance. I don't know, you have that too, Rob? Oh, no, he's saying no.
Yeah. Mr. DeBoe, you've been here all day. I want you.
Yeah, the appeal databases don't keep as accurate assessment numbers if there are changes that happen in that
Okay,
tax year.
Been sitting a lot, so this walking back and forth has been good.
it's all good.
But I missed the question, sorry.
I was just asking the value, the aggregate value on the, what's 4,000 appeals?
Right.
Oh, I don't have that with me, but
You know,
we can get you that.
Just want
Yes.
to get it, for the record, just get a number. Okay, well, I'm actually good. So, I'm going to recognize, Councilwoman Gim.
Thank you very much, Council President. Good afternoon, how are you? You know, I think about 2 years ago or last year, there was a lot of tension with the Bureau of Revision of Taxes over the pace of the appeals process, especially post-AVI. And it seemed to be something that was a real struggle. So I wanted to ask you, because the commercial reassessments are coming up, and they are important, as everybody has said, and whatever the outcome is whatever the outcome is. But I think the timing of it is also very important. And I'm wondering, one of the things that did come up last time was a lot of questions about the schedule for the BRT commissioners. Could you tell me whether you think that what the hearing schedule for the appeals is going to look like for this, and what kind of timeline you see for the conclusion?
So in an ideal world, we always hope to hear 100% of the appeals in that particular tax calendar year. So if 2018 appeal hearings begin January 1st of 2018, we prefer to be finished by December 31st of 2018. We are anticipating, however, probably taking on an additional hearing date. One of the things that the board offers, a lot of times people want their day. They want their day to talk and kind of fuss about their assessments, and they want to be heard. So it's a balance, you know, giving people an opportunity, a chance to vent their concerns and issues with their assessment, and also exhaust the cases as quickly and as efficiently as possible. So since commercial and industrial cases tend to be higher in market value, we schedule less of those at any given hearing date. So we'll probably take on either 1 or 2 more hearing dates in a week, or have multiple sessions in one day. Like, so during AVI, we had 1 day a week just dedicated for administrative appeals, and then we also had a morning and afternoon session 2 or 3 days a week to hear the number of appeals. So something like that might also have to happen for the commercial industrial cases. We'll really know come October 1 when the appeal deadline has come.
So, I mean, just could you clarify for me, how many
Sure.
days a week do you actually plan to have the hearings?
So right now, the board has hearings 2 or 3 days a week. Usually 2 days are dedicated to oral testimony hearings, and 1 day a week dedicated to those appeals where people don't want to put on an oral argument. The board will just meet to go over the factual information they sent.
And is that the fullness of their position? How much is a commissioner paid?
So the board members are paid $70,000 a year.
Right.
So that's not the fullness of their position. They do prep time. Some of those prefer to do prep time on Fridays before the start of the next week, or Monday before the start of their hearing week. So there is prep time that's in there also.
And is it that they don't do hearings 5 days a week?
We've actually never done hearings 5 days a week. There's always been at least 1 day allocated for board members to prep their appeal hearing schedule. So in the height of hearing actual value appeals, there was 1 day that was allocated for prep for them. And then they had hearings 3 days a week, and then non-oral hearings one day of that week.
Okay. So do you think it's possible to do 4 days a week of hearings? I mean, part of it that's at play is, you know, $120 million on the table in real estate revenue that, we're hoping is budgeted into the school district's budget and to the city's budget. One of the concerns that we had last time around on the AVI was because we failed to meet our needs around that it had a lot to do with, the district being off its mark in terms of its revenue projections. And so not only meeting the deadline, but potentially exceeding the deadline seems possible if hearings are currently only scheduled for 2 to 3 days a week and actually increasing to 4, or guaranteeing, working to 4 days a week seems like that would significantly guarantee us that we could meet our deadline.
So, sure, that's something we can absolutely do. We had before, and to handle the office work when the volume's high, we usually have a pool of temporary staff that have come to work 3 months or 6 months or 9 months to get through the workload.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, I would urge you to see what you can do about making 4 days a week. I think it's, something that the city of Philadelphia put a lot of effort in to make sure that the commissioners were paid an appropriate amount and were paid equally, I believe, across the board, so that no commissioner did not get paid unfairly or unequally during that time period. But in exchange, I think, in particular, 4 days a week of hearings to ensure that we meet our projections would be a huge benefit and would put a lot of confidence, I know, from myself on council and in our ability to ensure that revenue projections get met right on time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councilwoman. The chair recognizes Councilman Dunn.
Thank you, Council President, and good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I just want to make sure that I'm accurate with some of these numbers I'm going to share.
Sure.
Before this most recent commercial assessment, the value of real estate in the city was about $134 to $138 billion, roughly?
Yes.
Okay. And this most recent assessment that we claim is going to generate $118 million, if we use a loss factor of 20%, it looks like it's really $148 million against a value of $10.6 billion. So now our portfolio of the city is worth about $144 to $146 billion.
Okay.
And the revenue is 1.4, less nonprofits, et cetera, but our revenue is probably about 1.4 billion to 1.45 billion of revenue, of which the school district will get 55%. My reason for putting these statistics out there is because I'm concerned that we don't have enough assets and resources allocated to the Board of Revision of Taxes to fight these appeals and to defend them. And because I'm looking at your numbers, and if I'm reading it correctly, we just had $148 billion roughly raise in value, okay, or $14 billion raise in value, and I'm sorry, it's $10.6 billion raise in value, and we're allocating $80,000 more to defend those appeals in your budget. There is no way you can defend those appeals, and there's too much money at stake. So I'm just going to say this: if we have $148 potential $1 million, we're taking 20% off. This should be doubled or tripled, and we should go outside and hire the best attorneys and commercial appraisers to defend this. There's too much money at risk not to do this. Too much money. If you were in the private sector and you just generated, okay, $148 million of revenue, of which you were assuming you're going to lose 20% or 30 million, you'd spend $1 million or $2 million to try to figure out how you keep it. We're spending 80,000. Are you concerned about that?
Well, one thing I will tell you, in this number, in that figure, is actually a RFP that was just recently awarded to a commercial appraiser that it's been hired to consult with the board. And I will tell you, if half my board members are here, they'd be pleased to hear you say that, because they're fighting actually for a legal consultant to come on board as well.
You have to. I don't know I don't know how you're going to get the funding if we have to approve it, but there's no way I'm going to tell you right now, I get emails from all kinds of law firms right now who want to take on the fight of filing appeals. We've created a tremendous business. And I'm not saying they're right or wrong. All I'm saying is I want to make sure the city defends their position fairly. If we made a mistake, no problem. But I don't want us to, we had a property on Walnut Street, 1905, where we sold it as the city for $40 million, and it was assessed for $4.5 million. I mean, that's just not right. So I want to make sure that we don't lose this money, that 55% goes to the schools, and I want to make sure we defend it in a fair way. If we're appraising residential real estate in a fair way, commercial should be appraised the exact same way. And I want to protect our interests, because I think there's a lot of money at risk here. And I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of people going to be filing appeals. And if you have the best lawyers and the best commercial appraisers, that will speak volumes to getting this resolved. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
We need to do that. I'm just saying,
Yes.
that needs to be done.
One of the things that's happening in the next coming weeks, we will sit down with the Office of Property Assessment. We did want to get more in detail of all the commercial industrial notices that went out. How many properties exactly are there, and what is their current market value, just to kind of see the numbers that we're looking at, and if we did need to bring another commercial appraiser on staff.
Well, the way I'm looking at this, you raised commercial property values $10.6 billion. If I take the inverse of 1.4 times 148 million, that's the value of the real estate,
Okay.
10.6 billion. So to protect that, I'd say we have to have a bigger investment than what we're talking about here, which is 80,000.
Okay.
I mean, thank you, Council President.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. You can tell when we're not raising taxes. Yeah. It's just a much more pleasurable. Thank you very much for your
Okay.
testimony.
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker. Next up, Rob DeBoe. You got anything?
What? No, I like it this way. Yeah.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Please proceed.
My name is Rob Dubo. I'm the Director of Finance. I'm here to testify in support of Bills 170-198, 199, and 200. I'm joined at the table by Anna Adams, Budget Director. The bills would reauthorize the current rates for the school property and use occupancy tax rates. 198 reduces the rates for wage tax from the current rates of 3.9004 for residents and 3.4741 for non-residents to 3.89 and 3.46 respectively. Administration remains committed to gradual reduction in the wage tax, as numerous studies and reports have consistently cited cities' relatively high wage tax rates as a barrier to job creation. Over the course of our proposed 5-year plan, the wage tax rates would be reduced to 3.7% for residents and below 3.3% for non-residents, which are the lowest the rates have been in decades. That concludes my testimony. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
That's what I'm talking about. Good. Question. UNO, tax collection process or assessment. So how do we send out tax bills for UNO?
I'm going to ask the Revenue Commissioner to answer
All
that.
right, I figured you pretty much
It
know
took all of one question for me to call him
You've been around so
up.
long, I know you know pretty much everything, so we tend to ask you questions that
If he
you may
if he
not.
wasn't here, I would have tried, but he's...
Yeah, I understand, right?
So for the UNO tax, Frank Breslin, Revenue Commissioner, for the UNO tax, we send out monthly it's really a tax form. It lists the total amount of tax due based on the assessed value for the property.
Of the total property.
For the total property. And
Okay.
then there's lines to take the exemptions or exclusions, the residential portion, those type of things, and then reduces it to the amount of tax due, and then that gets submitted with payment.
Is that self-reporting?
It's self-reporting, yes.
So if we were to just basically send out a tax bill based on the assessment, the initial form that we sent out, is it in an assessed value and attached bill? Or is it just a form that says?
We call it max tax, so it starts with an amount of tax due, and then you get
So
to...
it's for the entire property?
For the entire
And then
property,
they-
and then you get to reduce it from there.
So they get to determine and how do we follow up on that?
We do it through our compliance unit through audit. So when auditors are out, they'll actually, or our investigators. When we're out, I talked a little bit earlier about investigators being out, and Councilman O also talked about, what they need to see. Sometimes they need to see a residence or inspect a property to determine what portion is being used for commercial, what portion is being used residential, because sometimes there's areas that are being used for storage. So you could have a back room that's being used for storage, and we have to determine that when that form was filled out, they didn't classify that portion as residential. So we're really looking at it in terms of a percentage. We start with 100%, the assumption that 100% of the property is commercial, and give them the amount of tax that's due, and they have the opportunity to reduce that.
All right.
And then our auditors will verify that those reductions are accurate.
So how many properties, how many accounts do we have?
I don't know the number of U&O accounts, but I can get that to you.
Thereabout. I'm just
Yeah.
saying. I'm trying to find out, essentially, you have investigators or auditors, or whatever we use to confirm the information, the self-reporting information. And I'm trying to see if there's like 10,000 accounts for commercial properties, how many people do we have?
Yeah, so so based on the example I gave, we need to reduce it down because there's a lot of properties that are remitting, I don't know the percentages, but there's percentages that are remitting at 100%. So we don't need really any compliance enforcement there. And one of the other things we do is
Full occupancy.
they're paying full
No problem.
occupancy,
All So the question is, how many properties do we believe, or do you, if you don't have the number on?
I don't have it, but I can get you that
If you find how
number.
many of those properties have mixed use, i.e., some residential or some exempt or some other type of
I can get you
activity.
those. We'll get you
But
those.
I'm just trying to get a sense of if people are actually paying taxes for the taxable property in these mixed-use properties.
Yep.
How difficult would that be to get?
We can get that for you.
Like quickly?
Yeah.
All right. Before we vote on the budget?
Yes.
All right. Okay.
No, I think we have that information. All right. It may even be in this big binder of
Yeah.
stuff, but I'll never
'Cause I'm
find
just
it
trying to
right
see,
now.
do
So
we have enough people?
yeah, we'll get
to
our
act-
hands on it.
Do we have enough people to actually go out and determine if the self-reporting information is accurate? I mean,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has to be a lot of properties, and I'm sure we don't have close to that amount of people.
Yeah, one of the other things we're looking at is, and I get a status, I don't think we've actually started the process, but we're using screening tools to identify properties that there's indications that they should be audited. So it's kind of what we do with our traditional audits. We have a screener, an audit screener in the process, and we use computers, technology to assist us with this, and it looks for certain traits, attributes that indicate that a property should be reviewed, and that helps us focus our resources so that we're not looking at that big pie and wasting resources looking at properties where there's probably a very small portion of it being excluded. And with the new exemption on UNO, that's eliminated a lot of properties out of the pool. So we're doing a lot, and I can get that number to you as well, what the number was pre-exemption and what it is now. So that, without adding additional resources, we have a smaller pool to look at, so that makes us more effective too.
I guess Mr. DeVoe, this might be. So what level of flexibility do we have with UNO in terms of non-uniformity, I guess I would say?
I think we have the same constraints there we have with any of our other taxes.
You believe so?
Yes. Because the uniformity is for taxes in general. It's not just for property tax, let's say.
Okay. All right. Okay, thank you. Chair recognizes Councilman Down.
Thank you, Council President. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
First, I want to just thank both of you for all your cooperation and help this past year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
It's
you-
like we've been making a musical together.
You guys are doing a good job. You're very cooperative, so I appreciate that. I don't have much, but I have one I want to follow up from the conversation we just had. I am concerned that we don't have enough resources in BRT, in defending these tax appeals. And I know that we've talked about this. I just want to make sure that if there's a way to get money to them.
I want to clarify one thing too. So defending the appeals would be OPA.
Okay.
BRT just hears the appeals.
Oh, hearing.
So they don't defend them, they just hear them. It's OPA, and we put additional resources.
How much additional did we put into OPA?
We put money both for new assessors and for the outside consultant, but I'll get you the numbers in a second.
So it's Anna Adams, Budget Director. We put 500,000 in for a commercial reassessment consultant, as well as kind of to fully fund all their staff, an additional 736,000.
You might need more considering the amount at risk. Because in your numbers, I think it's, 148 million, 20% loss factor is 30 million.
We did it off the taxable base. We didn't do it off the total base, but yeah, get to the same point, I think.
So, I'm in favor, if you need more, to come back and apply more, because there's a lot at risk, and 55 cents of every dollar is going to the schools.
Understood.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman McGinn.
Yes, thank you very much, Council President. Just wanted to check really quickly, I know the school district sees a 10% increase in UNO. Do you know where that's coming from? I'm going to ask them when they come in, but I'm curious about whether there's no rate changes or anything.
There's no rate change
Okay.
in the UNO for FY18.
Okay, so they just see a 10%
It's
projection,
right.
which is, and then, let's see, the one thing to piggyback off the previous conversation a little bit, how long did it actually take to resolve through the AVI appeals once they were impacted? Once they went into effect, what was the actual process for the AVI appeals, and what was the length of time? Yeah,
So there are two parts to the process. There's the first level review that goes to OPA, so they'll try to resolve things in-house. And then there's the appeals to the BRT. Appeals to BRT, I think, have to be in place by October of that year. The first year there were a massive number of appeals, and I think it actually took them a couple of years to work all the way through those. There are still maybe a handful actually left from the original appeals.
Even today?
Yeah, but I think it's maybe a couple of dozen out of 20,000, and I think it may be particular issues with those.
Okay.
I think since then, I think they're now back to a point where they're caught up and they get to the appeals within the year, the time frame that Carla was talking about.
And so how many years did it take to work through 20,000
I think
roughly?
I think to get through almost all of them, it took maybe 2 years, and then there's some kind of stragglers that are still out there.
And city revenue had counted on them being completed within the year?
We assumed some appeal loss.
Yeah, right, of course.
Right. But initially, I think we thought that it would take about a year, and then as we saw how the process was going, we pushed it back a little on our estimates.
So how many commercial properties so in the current batch of reassessment properties, do we have a figure on the number of appeals? Have they started to come in yet?
No, the appeals won't come in.
But if we were to use the 20%?
So we had 40,000 properties.
Properties, okay.
Who were affected, commercial properties, commercial, industrial. To put that in context, the AVI was all 540,000 properties, and we had 20,000 appeals there.
But commercials usually reappeal at a higher rate than residential.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
They have lawyers.
Yes. And now we do too. Well, we always did, but now we have outside lawyers
And
also.
is this the largest batch of commercial reappraisals that's been done?
Since AVI, yes.
Since
AVI
AVI,
included
okay.
all of the commercial. So
Okay.
that 20,000 appeals included all commercial and residential.
Okay. And what percentage of the 20,000 would you say were commercial?
Just 40, oh, the 20,000?
No, of the 20,000 back.
I'd have to get
Yeah.
back to, we can
Well,
get you that.
and part I'm wondering what we can project at and what is reasonable to expect out of what will go before the BRT, for example.
Right.
And I don't know that we can definitively do that, but my guess is that if it's a quarter, you know, it's a sizable chunk, and so in part, we do need the BRT to be putting in a full schedule.
Yeah, agreed.
Right, more than what they currently have scheduled, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
You guys want to be around for public testimony tonight? No?
We'll watch back from our offices.
All right. Thank you very much. Committee will stand in recess until 5 p.m. today for public testimony.
It's a little different tax hearing from last year's.
All right, like we have done with the other public testimony, we're going to ask everybody, we're going to call people up in threes, so to keep it moving, because we have a number of people who want to speak, and we're respectfully asking everybody, as we did the last public testimony, to limit your testimony to 2 minutes, okay? 2 minutes, so we get everybody a chance, so they're not waiting too long to speak. And the testimony is supposed to be on the tax bills today, correct? Yes. Yes. So, with that, will you please call the first 3 names on the list, please? You want to do it? Or you want me to? No? Okay.
Lawrence Almond, Wayne Bymond, and Erica Brown.
They all here? No, none of them. Okay. Next 3. All right, let me try this. I apologize for any name I will mispronounce. Manzoor Shagate. Manzoor. There we go. Bilal Balakwi. Okay. And Lola Lawton. Okay, so Mr. Shagate, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing names wrong. Okay. Please identify yourself for the record, and please proceed with your statement. And please, 2 minutes if we could. Okay? Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. President. My name is Manzoor Chuktai.
Yeah, please. Please, everybody, show the speakers respect, please. Go ahead.
Manzoor Chuktai from 7-Eleven. I've been franchisee since 1987. I have 2 stores in Philadelphia and 2 stores in Bucks County. And Philadelphia stores are not doing that great. My sales are down about 20 to 30% per store. And the gross profit is down about $7,000 to $8,000 a month. And I cut down my employees. Used to be 2 people on each shift. Now I have 1 person working on each shift. And we are deleted 2-liter soda, Pepsi. They're not delivering to any of our stores anymore in 7-Eleven. We had about 60 stores in Philadelphia. We were going to build 30 more brand new stores in Philadelphia. Right now, our company is not going to build the 30 stores in Philadelphia no more. And the soda tax is affecting us. Our income is not convenient for our people, our customers. They have to travel from city of Philadelphia to across the street. I was in one of the stores in 5th and Cheltenham. I had a bank there. I go to the bank, and there's a 7 outlet across the street from 7-Eleven and from Philadelphia. And the only thing is they're selling is the soda, cigarettes, and lottery. 3 items they have it. And also our lottery sales are down in Philadelphia. Nobody's coming and playing the lottery sales. And it's affecting our customers, and every customer comes in the store and they're mad, and they don't want to purchase anything. With the soda tax, I mean, they were purchasing other items, plus the coffee, sandwiches, snacks items. And I used to deliver 3 times a week, now only like maybe twice a week or once a week. And it's affecting us a big time. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Bilal Barkawi, and I have a 7-Eleven. I'm the Vice President of the Delaware Valley Franchisee Association. My name is Bilal Barkawi. I'm a franchisee with 7-Eleven and franchisee with Luke Oil gas stations. I'm the Vice President of the Delaware Valley Franchise Association of the 7-Eleven. I have been living at the City of Philadelphia since 1991. And I've been buying businesses in City of Philadelphia since 1991. I used to have 5 Sunoco's and I have 7-Eleven right now. The last thing I was thinking in one day that I would run out of City of Philadelphia, and it used to be fun, it used to be love, it used to be enjoyment to work at the City of Philadelphia. I'm telling you, it's not fun anymore. With the new rules and regulations that you are implementing right now, when I say you, I don't mean you personally, Mr. President. I mean the City of Philadelphia people. I don't know where we're going from here. Are we giving the business to Bucks County? Are we giving the business to Montgomery? Our business are down 40%. Where are we going from here? First, you started with the sales tax, 2% more than Bucks County. Then you come with the city, $20 more than. Then you come with the sugar tax. Then all of a sudden, somebody, because he thinks that he is better than anybody else, who is the health commissioner, he come with all of a sudden with rules and regulations that we cannot renew license within the limit of 500 feet from the school and all of this stuff. Sales tax is down. We fire employees because we cannot afford it. Our sales is down 40%. Pepsi is running away. And Bucks County is saying, thank you, City of Philadelphia. Thanks you for all the efforts that you're doing. If you think, Mr. President and the team, that you think that you're going to increase the tax, you're wrong. If you think that the City of Philadelphia will stop smoking, you're wrong. If you think with implementing the sugar tax, people are going to stop drinking and we'll be happy, no, they're running across the street and buy it. I know, maybe I increase 1 more minute. It's not fun anymore. It's not fun anymore. Please help. All what I'm asking for, and I beg you, I request you, do the same what Santa Fe State did. Make a vote. Let the people vote. Okay. Over there, they stopped it and took 58% again to 42%. Okay. Trust me, it will be 90% people, they will not accept all the sugar tax. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, sir. Please, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Lola Lawton. I operate the Southern Inn, which has been in business for over 35 years. This has been a great disappointment with the soda tax, especially in this restaurant, because we deal with a lot of school children who come in the morning to love to buy their little juices and sodas. We've had a very big decrease in sales because of the soda tax. We've lost customers who don't want to come in. You know, it's really an unfair situation for us, especially people that are very low income people that cannot barely afford to make a living, not less a little kid running into our establishment and just wanting a little Pepsi or a little orange juice or something to take to class or drink beforehand. We have had to downsize the people who work for us. We had to downsize. There are less people able to, hold down their jobs now anymore because we had to go down some kind of way to make up the difference of what we're losing in money because of this soda tax thing has been so hard. Me, myself, I'm a Pepsi drinker. I love Pepsi, okay? I myself, I'm going way out of the city to go to the suburbs to buy a Pepsi. It's ridiculous. And the truth of the matter is I haven't seen where it have helped any, and why are we being put down as the only people, Philadelphia, PA, being put in this position. It's unfair to us. It's not right that we have to sit here and give out more money when money should come from a richer situation. This is not fair to the poor people, the low income, or either middle, anyone that has to put out money. It's a very unfair situation. We've lost business over this. I would appreciate it that they would really reconsider this and think hard because it has been hard on us people as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
Lucien Jacques, Miguel Medrano, Jose Gomez. Sure. Mr. Ribi Mustafa, Jose Santos, Elizabeth Rodriguez, Johnny Martinez, Evelt Vertil,
You testifying, sir? You can,
Yes, we're all going to testify.
okay.
Thank you.
Why don't one of you sit up there today? Thank you. Please proceed.
My name is Ribi Mustafa. My family owns and operates 3 businesses in West Philadelphia, Sunshine Food Market. One of our locations is located on 60th and Market Street. It's literally 3 blocks away from Upper Darby. Ever since this tax has taken effect January, we've seen a significant drop in our sales at all 3 locations, but 60th Street got hit the most because 3 blocks away is Upper Darby, where people could save on their cigarettes, where they could save on their sales tax, and where they could save on their sodas. Since this thing took effect, all 3 locations, we've had to reduce our staff by about 15 personnel. I'm speaking to every single salesman that comes into my store to ask him what's going on because we're very concerned about losing sales. And what I've learned is the sales that are being lost inside Philadelphia, they're only going to Delaware County. All the markets from Delaware County, all their gross receipts have increased while ours are decreasing. It's 2% sales tax, you got a cigarette tax, and you got a soda tax now. The playing field is unleveled. You guys are putting shackles on us. It's getting harder and harder to keep our doors open. And I hope we could come to a compromise where you guys could give us an edge to stay in the city of Philadelphia and to stay open for business. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Excuse me.
Yes.
Let me ask you a question. You just referenced at the end of your testimony a compromise. What would that be?
Well, a compromise would be, you guys need to look at the bigger picture where people are actually going outside of the city to shop for their groceries today. Because it's not just the soda tax. You're talking about cigarettes, sales tax, and soda. That's 3 items that people are leaving the city to go shop. A compromise would be to settle on abolishing this tax.
Well, that's a compromise.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. All right. Okay. I thought you. Okay. I just know we spent a lot of endless hours in here trying to reach a compromise. We couldn't figure it out, and I said, man, he has the answer. Where have you been? Okay.
My
all
answers take it away.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, sir. Please, yeah, Councilwoman, yeah.
Let me thank him. He's one of our newer store owners, too. And we thank him for what he's done in the neighborhood and how
Okay.
much he's given to the neighborhood and how many people he's tried to help, nonetheless, for the compromise. But we do thank him. He's a good store owner and a good neighbor. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Blackwell, and thank you for supporting us and being there for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Councilwoman. Please.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Eveld, E-V-E-L-T, last name Vertil, V-E-R-T-I-L. And I'm here on behalf of the Haitian American Voice of Philadelphia. In the Haitian community in Philadelphia, we are about 60,000+. And since the tax has been implemented, and we saw that our purchasing power is really down, and nobody get any raise, family been hurt, and we have to really live in a tight budget. I really understand, and I'm for the intention and for the purpose for which these taxes has been implemented, because 2 of my kids, they went to preschool, and they did well. However, Mr. President, along with the rest of the team, I think the process and the way we do it, it's hurting us tremendously. And I would recommend, because I love this city, I've been living in this city for 16 years, and I would not like to see our city is going down just because of a bad decision. And, and furthermore, I strongly believe that with the right leadership and with innovative thinking, we can really find other ways to really raise more revenue that can help us in the things that we need to make a city a better city, to make a city a very competitive city, because we have a great city. And we are with you, and we would like to ask you if it's possible to reconsider these taxes. And thank you.
Thank you, sir. Your testimony.
Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon.
Mi nombre es Washington Mencía.
Wait a minute, hold on. Let him sit down. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon.
Mi nombre es Washington Mencía.
My name is Washington Bencia.
Soy líder comunitario
I'm a community leader
del 4205.
of the 4205.
Soy miembro de es un grupo que le da soporte
It's a
al
group that
Partido
supports
Demócrata.
the Democratic Party.
Somos un grupo de voluntarios
We're a group of volunteers
para tratar de competir
to try to compete
con las grandes empresas
with the large enterprises
que apoyan cierto político.
that support certain politics.
Tengo 7 comerciantes
I have 7 commercial store owners
que se acercaron a mí.
that came and approached them.
Me dicen, mira,
They
con
told
los taxes
with the taxes,
nos hemos visto obligados
we have seen ourselves obligated
a vender nuestro negocio.
to sell our business.
Que resulta que las personas que lo compran
What results from the person buying it,
se le niega los permisos
the people that are buying it, they're denying the new permits coming on board.
y esa es la problemática que tengo con ellos,
And this is what the problem I have.
con esta persona.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for your testimony, sir.
City Council, Mr. President, City Council, thank you for an opportunity. My name is Fernando Suarez. I'm an accountant for 30 years here in the city of Philadelphia at the street level, at the mom and pop, grocery store, bar, restaurant level. So imagine where you guys were 30 years ago. I've been around a long time, and since I'm their accountant, they give me a decent idea of what's happening every single day. I personally took, since the last time we spoke, a walk from store to store. I visited personally 45 stores, and my crew of 6 people visited 210 stores. I have about 40 videos I have over 3,000 signatures. In the 8 days, the same exact things happen, the same exact words happen. Our business is down 30 to 40%. And the problem here is, I asked them, so if this continues for 2 months, what's going to happen? And their eyes just opened up. They didn't think that far in advance. And I said, fine, okay, what would happen? They said, well, if that's true, then I'm going to have to lay off some people. I go, great, okay, then what would happen a year from now when this tax continues? They all pulled back and their eyes opened up even further. They said, well, I'm going to have to sell my store. And I'm going to have to give the keys to the city of Philadelphia because won't have any value to it. I could tell you all these people, what they said. I have it written down. I have names, address, telephone numbers, emails. It is very ugly out there. If it was only city council, if it was only that this was one tax, and if we had a normal economy, things would be fine. Okay, we need to find some resources, great. I propose different resources. I do have some solutions. They're pretty simple. But we're sitting in an economy that's going to be horrific in the next year. And this tax is the nail on the coffin. The entire United States is looking at Philadelphia. Philadelphia is always the first. It's always the best. And we have an example here. We have a chance to change a lot of different things with your help. This tax is abusive. It's double taxation. This tax doesn't take in mind the store owner, how hard they work for the amount of hours they work, and what they do for the community. These are the community leaders. These are city block leaders where they're respected. We have half the city of Philadelphia on public assistance. These are the people that connect them to their milk. They respect them. They listen to them. And we have an opportunity to do great things. But if we destroy the corner city stores, Walmart, Comcast, CVS, Rite Aid, which do not live, reside, or spend money in this city, will leave. We will leave. The store owners will leave. Personally, I have over 400 businesses that pay me on a monthly basis. Most of them are grocery stores. I represent 1,000 grocery stores. I live them. I feel them. I understand them. And I went an additional and spent a whole week out there with them. I invite every single councilman to go to 2 or 3 stores themselves. Go out there, hit the street, and ask them. They don't have to hear from me or for all the people here. Go out there and ask them you directly, okay? This is going to destroy the city very quickly, and there are solutions. One of the solutions I propose is take existing businesses, okay, and add auditing. The city of Philadelphia does not properly audit, and you will find the money because the money is there, okay? In all services, not only business privilege taxes and net profits taxes, but in all types of taxes, if the city disciplines themselves to collect the tax that's properly due, you will find it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Joselito Vina, Luis Corsino, Jose Espino, Enero Melendez, Washington. I don't have a last name for Washington. Oh, okay. Tiffany Green. Mike Zali.
Oh, no, we got 3.
Oh, we got 3.
You already have 3? Oh, there's 2. Okay.
State your name, you can start.
Hello, my name is
Hold on 1 second, ma'am. Let the last person come up.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
My name is Enerolina Melendez.
Hold the mic a little closer.
My name is Enerolina Melendez. I've been, my name is Enerolina Melendez, and I've been in the city of Philadelphia since 1991. And I own a small business on North Philadelphia. And I get up every day, 6 o'clock, to make it to the store. And every morning, my heart is break because when I see the kids, they put the soda on top of the counter, and I say, listen, you don't have enough money to buy it. Sometimes I hear all kind of things every morning from parents cursing, and they say this is ridiculous, and business is going down. I don't know for how long we can stay there, because 40%, or I could say 40% of more is the sales is dropping. Right now, we working only 2 people at the store because the store doesn't make money to hire anybody else. And I would like the City of Philadelphia to help, to see us as people who are cleaning, who are supporting this neighborhood where it's depending only on food stamps. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Roberto Espinal. I live in Philadelphia around 15 years. I'm very happy for staying in Philadelphia because I'm living great. I'm living with my family and support my family in my country. And suppose some community when was my store, like Pathside community, I have any couple store. I still have any couple store in 15 years in Philadelphia. But now I have my reason sometimes is that how the city of Philadelphia, no, they lost the business because New Jersey, Delaware, or any county, Montgomery County, they look and find the people in this way. But where my store, now I shut them down and close the one in my store in 52nd and Lancaster, because when I'm trying to think this going to be a good store, they never going to sell more than $300 a day in $350 and $400. When they come in the soda tax, they go down around $200 and say, oh my God, I'm spending more than $90,000 in there. How I can go now? Now I'm thinking I had to fight it to the owner because he bring me to the court for the lease. I had to continue pay the lease because my store is going down because it's no business. Hopefully soon anybody they can concern for putting together for this community for the Philadelphia. The other city they can live in rich or they can live how they want to live in, but thinking about the other communities. Why? No matter how it's going to be the Russian, but hopefully soon the situation it's going to be fine. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony, sir.
Good afternoon. Good evening.
Good evening.
Is this on? Okay. Actually, I came to talk about tax appeals because that's what was on the list.
That's fine.
Okay, great. Well, it does tie into what you guys are talking about. However, I came to talk about the tax appeal process, and I think that it needs to be addressed by City Council, okay? It is absolutely disgraceful how people have to go to 4 different departments regarding to deal with tax appeals or tax assessments. With the BRT, you have to go down to tax revenue and MSB building. Then you have GRB, and then you have another department. I can't quite think of the name, at 100 South Broad Street. You have 4 different departments, okay? No internet connection among none of them, okay? They all have 4, the complaints we get, they all have 4 different types of departments, and no one can ever connect into the other departments to find out what is going on in those departments. They want to send you down there and have you walk down there or go down there and find out for yourself. When you get down there, then each department has different types of assessments on their computer for your particular properties. Okay, this is ridiculous, because at this modern time, it should be all well connected, where each department can look and see what the actual taxes are. Then on top of that, people are complaining because if the taxes are delinquent, now the city has went there and put on the particular computer that the property is going into tax. That it's under GRB, and it may be going to courts. And at that particular point, it's giving the developers a chance to take a look at people's properties to know that they're going into court. You didn't have that before. And now with this particular law on the books that allows anyone to take people's properties to sheriff's sale if they own more than $800, that needs to be addressed too, because someone should not be able to take your house to sheriff's sale by paying a fee to take your house to sheriff's sale like that. It needs to be a process that needs to be kind of long drawn out. I ran into quite a few people down at the pathonatory office who are appealing their houses going to sheriff's sale, and they didn't even know their house was going to sheriff's sale. So this is the issue that needs to be addressed. Also, if you appeal, you have to wait 9 to 10 months before you go in front of the appeal process. And then when you get there, then you're arguing and debating against actual lawyers, not people who are lawyers at this particular point. I'm going to continue on because this needs to be addressed. Against lawyers who don't really want to reduce or work with you regarding reducing your income, your house taxes at that particular point. Also, after you get your house, if you do get it reduced, you only get 30 days to pay it off in full, and at that particular point, they want to assess you with another 15% tax at that point. So if you owe like $700-800, then automatically you jump up to $950 based on 15% tax. And then when you go over to GRB wants to add on penalty and interest and lien fees and attorney fees. So now you're all the way up. Even though they take off penalty and interest, you're being double taxed by the 15% and the penalty and interest of GRB. Also, if you increase the taxes, okay, but yet you allow the developers to continue to build market rate houses over the counter by right, but yet you want to reassess yearly. It should not be reassessed yearly, because you continue to reassess yearly at that particular point. People's taxes are constantly going up. They can't seem to get, I'm going to finish it up soon. They can't seem to really catch up. They're constantly behind. And like these people said, we're dealing with a city which have a large low-income community. It is very hard for them. One more other thing, I just want to
keep saying one more.
I understand it, but this is important.
Tiff, you got two minutes. You're working on number 4.
Thank you.
No, I'm not saying you have 2 minutes. I said you have 2 minutes. You've used your time, so you got to. But you keep saying you got to finish it up, but you keep going on.
Somebody leaves their house or in debt or whatever, you have 2 houses, then you're not qualified for loot. That needs to be addressed. And finally, if we'll talk about more. I'll come back and talk about this, but I just want to put this on the record. I think it needs to be assessed and needs to be looked at. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're rushing me, but.
All right, so we called out a number of names, but we didn't get a response, so we're going to go through. You got one here?
Is that Mike Zolli?
Yes.
All right.
Lawrence Alman,
Warren Alman,
Wayne Byman, Erica Brown, Lucien Jacques, Miguel Medrano, Jose Gomez, Elizabeth Rodriguez, Luis Corsino.
Okay. Thank you.
How are you? My name is Mike Zally. I'm with ShopRite. So my family's been born and raised in Philadelphia. My grandfather started a corner store. He started a corner store, which was able to build it and become a member of Wakefront, which is now ShopRite. The soda tax is just another tax that is a burden, which ultimately hurts the consumer. Okay, and Philadelphia, I understand, is trying to grow jobs, right? And they're going about it the wrong way. The tax hurts our bottom line, and it has increased our expenses. I urge you to rethink the soda tax, because if it's not this tax, it's going to be another tax. And you know that businesses are unable to grow. It is impossible for people to have an entrepreneurial spirit in the city of Philadelphia if you continue to raise the taxes, along with the regulations. The regulations and taxes are impossible. Who in their right mind would want to start a business in Philadelphia with the amount of regulation and taxes in today's world? So, I'd really, and not to mention, it hurts the consumer. The lower income people of Philadelphia are the people that get hurt. The people that cannot go to Montgomery County, right? Go outside the city of Philadelphia. But we're for those people. We're trying to help those people. But it doesn't seem as though we are. Because they're the ones that are left with the real burden that's coming out of their pocket. Their kids can't afford a soft drink because the city is trying to dictate what is good for them. I don't know. I believe that you need to rethink this tax, and I really hope you do, and we support you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Clark.
Thank you so much for your testimony.
Yes, thank you.
We appear not to have anyone else on the witness list. Okay, that's it. All right, I want to thank you all so much. We do hear you. We understand the challenges. It was a tough one. It was a tough vote, and you get elected to make tough decisions. So hopefully somewhere down the line we can be in a position to mitigate some of the challenges that you're experiencing. But I really appreciate you. Got one more? Come on, sir.
So I would like to just take the 2 minutes and...
Sure.
Good afternoon.
State your name for the
My
record.
name is Mike Stelmack. I am a lifelong Philadelphia resident. Grew up in the city of Philadelphia, in the Olney section. Currently live in the Somerton section of Philadelphia. My 4 kids were raised in the public school system. My wife is a school teacher in Philadelphia currently. Taught at 28th and Cecil B. Moore for 13 years. And is currently in Northeast Philadelphia. I will tell you that this is a big burden on both myself and my family. I've been with Canada Dry for 27 years, and I never thought that there's a possibility that I may not have a job. We look here and we say, this is Big Bad Soda Company. Big Bad Soda Company, last time I looked, was, we're entrepreneurs. They have a right to make their money. This, to me, is a dictatorship by the city of Philadelphia. Who is being hurt are these people back here. These are middle-class people trying to make a living that, like myself, may not have a job. I'm in control of 80 drivers prior to this tax. I am currently down to 64 because of layoffs. Try having that uncomfortable conversation with a driver and other personnel within our company that you no longer have a job here. Not because of disciplinary action, because the city of Philadelphia has imposed this tax that has taken away their livelihood. It's very disappointing, and I would hope that council, revisits this and looks at this and realizes it's not this Big Bad Soda Company. It is the ownership group, the entrepreneurs, and these people behind me that make this city what it is, and made this city a proud city that I don't think is anymore. I'm on the verge of looking to move out of the city. I've been in this city for 48 years. I don't want to leave the city of Philadelphia, but you're forcing me out. I'm right on the border. And like other people have stated in here, it's very easy for me to shop the borders. People that are low income, do not have a car, are on food stamps, want a beverage, do not have that luxury that I have that can go outside the borders and are forced on this very unfair tax. Again, I would ask City Council to please look at this and think of the ramifications. This was a great city that is going in the wrong direction. You have the power to fix this. And I really hope that as a group, we can come up with alternate solutions other than a beverage tax, a cigarette tax, and the sales tax. People who are filling their baskets, when they're leaving the city of Philadelphia, they're not just going there to buy soda, they're filling their baskets with everything else.
Right.
And that's taking away the sales tax in the city of Philadelphia as well. So I please ask you to reconvene. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. And I can tell you, the City Council of Philadelphia, and speaking on behalf, we don't view you all as the big bad soda company. You're hardworking men and women, in large part citizens of the city. So that's not our characterization of your industry. So again, I want to thank you all for coming down this evening. Thank you for your testimony. We have heard you. Thank you so much. This concludes the public testimony. This committee will stand in recess until Wednesday, May 10th, 2017, 10 a.m., at which time we will reconvene in room 400 City Hall. Thank you all very much.